seated, and there are rows of, there's 2, 4, 6, 7, 8 seats up front here. Thank you very much for coming up front. Good evening and welcome to the January 26th council meeting. Good evening and welcome to the January 26th council meeting. Members of the public were provided with the following methods to watch and or participate in the open meeting. You can attend in person at the Dumfries Community Complex. You can attend electronically via Zoom to observe the meeting or to speak to an item on the agenda. You can watch the live stream by accessing the meeting on the Township's YouTube page, and submitted written comments were provided to the Clerk's Division and provided also to all members of council and will form part of the public record. Before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge and thank everyone for joining us this evening. We appreciate your participation. As we come together to serve the community, I ask that we create a welcoming and positive environment for everyone. That includes respect. That we listen to each other with care, speak thoughtfully, and engage kindly with one another. Kindness. That we treat everyone, council, staff, and the public with respect and understanding. And inclusion. That we embrace diverse perspectives and respect each other's opinions. Together, we can make this meeting space one where respect, kindness, and inclusion are at the heart of everything we do. Behavior that is disrespectful, disruptive, aggressive, or intimidating, which would never, ever happen with you people, will result in those individuals being asked to leave. And when I speak about respect, we're coming to talk about community values. And we have different opinions on that, or different ways of looking at it. And we have to be open-minded to hear what everybody says, not to defend our position, but to open our positions to all perspectives so we can make the best decision and the best community we can make. You still having a hard time hearing me? Well, several are. Yeah, I thought I was loud. That's better at the guys are gonna shut the whole con. We may need microphones. Anyway, I'd now like to call the meeting to order. Can I have approval of the agenda, Councilwoman, please?
Moved by myself, second by Councilor Tilly, that council adopt the January 26, 2026 council meeting agenda as presented with the following addendums. And
There's people outside that can't get in, and we're here to hear this. And
There's chairs up front here, so if you want to come in, you can sign the back and sheet later.
we're going to add 25 pieces of correspondence received for item 8.11 reports number 01/2026 report zoning. Zoning bylaw amendment for 92 Northumberland file number ZC 0825, and add one piece of correspondence received for item 10.2 Amanda Knopsinger regarding backyard chicken.
All those in favor? Carrie, thank you. I'd now like to do the Indigenous acknowledgements. We acknowledge that the land on which we gather today is the traditional territory. Put your hand up if you can't hear me when I'm speaking. The traditional territory, the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and the neutral people. We acknowledge the enduring presence of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land, and their achievements and contributions to our community. We offer this acknowledgement as an act of reconciliation, but they're only words. Our actions speak louder than anything we could say. What we do and how we be is what defines who we are. And so when we came to this land, and each of us came from a different background, we were welcomed. They welcomed us with respect. We have lost that. And now we are working hard to gain it back. And I worked with them numerous times over the last 8 years or 12 years. They have been respectful and honorable and listening and welcoming. And we are really making great strides, and I'm very grateful for that. So let's remember what we came, a place of respect. And I always said, Canadians, we respect you first. You have to lose that respect. Let's hold it precious and not lose it. So we'll hesitate for a moment of silence and pause on that. Thank you. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof? Seeing none, can I have adoption of the council minutes? Councilor Tilly, please.
Moved by myself, second by Council Williams, the council approve the following meeting minutes. 6.1, council meeting minutes dated December 8th, 2025. Just special 6.2, special budget council meeting minutes dated January 12th, 2026.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Motion to go into committee of adjustment, Councilor Williams, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Sullivan, that council meeting adjourned at 6:07 PM to sit as committee of adjustment for the purposes of holding public meetings pursuant to the provisions of the Planning Act.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature there? Oh, motion to approve the agenda first, Councilor Tilley.
Moved by myself, second by Ron Rollman, the committee adopt the January 26th, 2026 Committee of Adjustment agenda as presented.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest general nature thereof? Councilor Williams.
I'd like to disclose one for 7.6.1.
Thank you. So that's a minor variance application for 80 House Lane, file number A-1625. Thank you. Minutes for the previous committee of adjustment meetings. Council Alderman, please.
Moved by myself, second by Scott Tilley, that can be adjusted to approve the following meeting minutes dated December 8th, 2025.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Hearings, public meetings, minor variance and consent applications, 7.5.1, report number PD 02-2026, minor variance application for 1081 Rife Road, file number A-22/25. Notice has been given to those in accordance with the Planning Act. The Secretary Treasurer will keep a record of all persons who provide comments on this application and those who register with the Clerk's Department to request a notice of decision. Those individuals will be notified of the decision or the convening of future meetings on this application. Christina Bezanovic, Planner GIS, will present this application. Christina, please, and it will be on the screen for us.
The following presentations for minor variance application A-22/25 for the property located at 1081 Rife Road. The purpose of this report is to present a staff recommendation for the committee's consideration in conjunction with the statutory public meeting. Should any new concerns arise during the public meeting that warrant further review, staff will bring back and update a recommendation.
Christina, I'm sorry, but you're gonna have to speak up. Carry forward, please. I'm gonna have a sore throat by the end of the night, but I have pulse.
The property is located on the south side of Rife Road, west of the intersection of Dumfries Road. The property consists of a concrete brick and stone manufacturing facility with the accessory office space and outdoor storage yard for operations. The property is approximately 6 hectares in size with a lot frontage of 306 meters onto Rife Road. Surrounding land uses are industrial. The property is zoned Z 9 industrial and designated employment area and dry industrial commercial in the township official plan. The purpose of the application is to facilitate the construction of an addition to the rear of the existing industrial building. In December of 2024, a fire destroyed the rear portion of the building. The damaged area was subsequently demolished, and the proposed addition will replace the lost floor area with an expanded footprint. Hence, council granted an exemption for the site plan control for this reconstruction in June of 2025. The proposed addition will have a total area of approximately 3,118 square meters and a building height of 13.64 meters. The owner is also seeking 3 additional variances to recognize existing conditions that bring the subject property into compliance with the applicable zoning regulations. The following minor variances are being requested. Section 6.4.1 establishes that no person shall erect or possibly erect an accessory building between any building lines. The owner seeks release from this provision to permit the existing accessory building labeled Building A to be located within the established building line. Section 6.13.1B establishes that all off-street parking areas shall be situated to the rear of the building line. The owner seeks relief from this provision to permit off-street parking in front of the building line. Section 15.3.7 permits a maximum building height of 13.5 meters. The owner seeks relief from this provision to permit a building height of 13.64 meters, an increase of 0.14 meters. And lastly, section 15.3.10 A to C establishes that outside storage shall not be permitted in front of the main building should not be permitted in any required side yard and must be screened. The owner seeks relief from these provisions to permit outside storage in front of the main building within a required side yard and visible from the road frontage. This photo shows the industrial operation from Wright Road. Parking is on the left with the materials and products visible but secured behind a chain link fence. On the right is the administration building, and the proposed addition will be located at the rear and will not be visible from the road frontage. No correspondence has been received from any members of the public. There have been no concerns from any departments or commenting agencies. The fire department has requested that the fire department connection be relocated to a more accessible location. And Six Nations of the Grand River has requested that the proposed development be designed using bird and light friendly practices. Planning staff is of the opinion that the requested variances meet the core test of the minor variances outlined below by the Planning Act. One, that the variance is minor in nature. The height variance is minimal, and the other variances address existing site conditions without impacting adjacent properties. Two, that the variance is desirable. The proposed development allows the property owner to restore and improve the industrial building following the fire, ensuring that continued operation of the business. The slight increase in building height accommodates functional requirements, while the other variances support efficient site layout. Three, that the variance meets the intent of the bylaw. The property is zoned for industrial uses and expansion continues this use. The other variances reflect existing conditions in site functionality, maintaining compatibility with surrounding properties. And four, that the variance meets the intent of the official plan. The addition continues an existing permitted industrial use on the designated industrial property. Planning staff recommend that minor variance application A22/25 be approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. Does the applicant or agent, are they here? Would they like to make any comments? Seeing none, any member of the public wish to comment? This is getting easy. Oh, I jinxed it, right? Any members of council or the committee wish to make any comments? And can I have the motion, please, Councillor Wilms?
Moved by myself, seconded by Rod Goldman, that PD report number 02-2026 be received. And that minor variance application A-22/25 being request to permit the existing accessory building labeled existing building A to be located within the established buildings line. Whereas section 6.4.1 of general zoning bylaw number 689-83 establishes that no person shall erect or cause to be erected an accessory building between any building lines established by this bylaw. And B, off-street parking in front of the building line. Whereas section 6.13.1b of general zoning bylaw number 689-83 establishes that all off-street parking areas shall be situated to the rear of the building line. And C, a building height of 13.64 meters. Whereas section 15.3.7 of general zoning bylaw number 689-83 permits a maximum building height of 13.5 meters. And D, outside storage in front of the main building within a required side yard and visible from the road frontage. Whereas section 15.3.10 or C of general zoning bylaw number 689-83 establishes that outside storage shall not be permitted in front of the main building, shall not be permitted in any required side yard, and must be screened. Be approved.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Next, we have 7.5.2, report number PD 03-2026, minor variance application for 9 Taylor Court, file number A-21/25. Notice has been given to those according to the plan. The Secretary Treasurer will keep a record of all persons who provide comments on this application and those who register with the Clerk's Department to request a notice of decision. Those individuals will be notified of the decision or the convening of future meetings on this application. Christina Blazanova will present this application. Christina, please.
The following presentation for minor variance application A-21/25 for the property located at 9 Taylor Court. The purpose of this meeting.
Christina, can you do that up here? It may help people hear you better. Sorry, dear, didn't want to censor. Thanks, Christina. The mic's not working, just face the people here. Yeah, if you can.
The following presentation for minor variance application A-21/25 for the property located at 9 Taylor Court. The purpose of this meeting is to provide an overview of the proposal, to solicit comments, and identify issues or matters to be assessed by staff. The property is located at the southwest corner of the intersection of Taylor Court and Greenfield Road. The property consists of a two-story single detached dwelling. Property is approximately 0.8 hectares in size with a lot frontage of 60 meters onto Taylor Court. Surrounding land uses are agricultural and rural residential. This property is zoned 2 rural residential and designated agricultural in the township official plan. The purpose of the application is to facilitate the construction of a two-story detached accessory building in the rear yard of the subject property. The main floor is intended to be a garage, with the second story proposed to be used as storage. The garage will have a building of 9.14 meters by 9.14 meters, with a total area of 83.54 square meters and a proposed building of 7.48 meters. On the screen is the floor plan of both the ground floor and second floor. 2 minor variances are identified in the staff information report. The first relates to section 6.44 of the zoning bylaw, which does not permit a habitable room within, on, or above attached to an accessory building. Secondly, section 6.4.7 permits a maximum accessory building height of 5.2 meters. The owner seeks relief from this provision to permit an accessory building to have a height of 7.48 meters. Following the preparation of the information report, staff confirmed with the applicant that the second story will be used solely for storage, with no habitable space proposed. Accordingly, the variance related to a habitable room will not form part of the recommendation report. The photo on the screen is a view of the property from Taylor Court. The proposed detached garage will be constructed in the area circled in yellow. No correspondence has been received from any members of the public. There have been no concerns from the Township Engineering and Public Works Department, Waterloo Catholic District School Board, GRCA, Grand Bridge, or Region of Waterloo. The building department will require a grading plan at the time of building permit submission. The 6 nations of the Grand River have requested that the proposed development use bird-friendly glass and lighting. Planning staff are still waiting comments from some agencies. Staff recommends that all comments and correspondence received from members of the public and government agencies through the consultation process be returned to staff for future committee on the disposition of this matter. Staff will be considering matters including all comments and correspondence received and whether the development meets the criteria of the forecasts.
Thank you, Christina. Does the applicant or agent wish to speak at this time? Okay, he's using, you have him on?
Yeah, he does.
Okay. Any member of the public wish to speak on this application? Councilors. Councilwoman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is to staff. I don't recall seeing anything from Grand River before about bird-friendly lighting and glass. I was curious what comment staff have on that, what that means. I'm not sure under the building code if that's even something that we normally do.
We'll find out. Christina, please.
So that's a general comment we received from 6 nations of the Grand River. The more recent comments we've been receiving, so that's something we can follow up with them and see how that can be incorporated. What we can do there.
Thank you. I just asked, I didn't hear what you said what the second story is going to be used for.
Just storage.
Just storage. Okay, thank you. No other comments, councilors? Can I have the motion, please, Councilwoman?
Moved by myself, second by Councilor Tilley, that P report number 03/2026 be received, and that all comments and correspondence received through the consultation process be returned to staff for consideration in a future report committee on discussion of this matter.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Next is, you know what, you're gonna know your statements off by heart. I had to keep reading them. 7.5.3 report number minor variance application for 1753 Shelly Road, file number A-0126. Notice has been given to those in accordance with the Planning Act. The Secretary Treasurer will keep a record of all persons who provide comments on this application and those who register with the Clerk's Department to request a notice of decision. Those individuals will be notified of the decision on the convening of future meetings on this application. Christina Blazanova. Welcome, Christina. You're up.
Citations for minor variance application 801/26 for the property located at 1753 Charlotte Road. Purpose of this meeting is to provide an overview of the proposal, to solicit comments, and identify issues or matters to be assessed by staff. This property is located on the east side of Charlotte Road, south of the intersection of Charlotte Road and Clyde Road. The property consists of a one-story single detached dwelling and an accessory building. This property is approximately 1 hectare in size with a lot frontage of 50 meters onto Shelburne Road. Surrounding land uses are agricultural and rural residential. This property is zoned Z1 agriculture with site-specific zoning exemption 20.1.191 and designated agricultural in the township official code. The purpose of the application is to facilitate the construction of a coach house and a single-story accessory building in the rear yard of the subject property. The proposed accessory garage will be 7 meters by 6.7 meters in size with a total area of 47 square meters. The proposed coach house is irregularly shaped and will have a total area of approximately 154 square meters. The coach house will have a building height of approximately 5 meters. A basement is also proposed within the coach house to accommodate the necessary mechanical equipment. The principal dwelling unit has a building footprint of approximately 241.5 square meters. The proposed coach house is permitted to be 40% of the size, which is approximately 96.6 square meters. The owner is requesting a variance to exceed this size limit. On the screen is an elevation and the floor plan of the proposed coach house. The following minor variances are being requested. Section 6.40.7 permits a maximum coach house size of 40% or 96.6 square meters of the footprint of the principal dwelling unit. The owner seeks relief from this provision to prevent a maximum size of 64% or 154 square meters of the footprint of the principal dwelling unit. And secondly, section 6.40.10 establishes that a basement is not permitted in a coach house. The owner seeks relief from this provision to permit a basement within a coach house. This is a photo of the view of the principal dwelling from Shelburne Road. The proposed coach house will not be visible from the road frontage. The photo on the left is a view of the access to the rear yard. This currently provides access to an existing accessory building and will be extended to provide access to the proposed coach house and accessory garage. The photo on the right is the approximate location of the proposed coach house and accessory garage. No correspondence has been received from any members of the public. There have been no concerns from the GRCA, Region of Waterloo, or Canada Post. The building department will require septic review at the time of building permit submission and find back or so related comments from some students.
You can still.
I have one slide left.
Oh, sorry.
Staff recommends all comments and correspondence received from members of the public and government agencies through the consultation process be returned to staff for future reports to committee on the disposition of this matter. Staff will be considering matters including all comments and correspondence received and whether the development meets the criteria of the board tests. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. The applicant wish to make any comments? I believe they're on Zoom. Do you want to make any comments?
They're just here to answer questions.
Okay. Any members of the public wish to speak on this application or for have or hold your peace? Any members of committee? Seeing none, can I have the motion, please, Councilor Tiller?
Moved by myself, second by Leader Wilms, that PD report number 04-2026 be received and that all comments and correspondence received through the consultation process be returned to staff for consideration of future report to the committee on the disposition of this matter.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Report and recommendation minor variance on consent application 7.6.1 PD 06-2026 minor variance application for 80 House Lane, file number A-16/25. Councilor Wilms has left the meeting due to a conflict. Notice has been given to those in accordance with the Planning Act. The Secretary Treasurer will keep a record of all persons who provide comments to this application and those who register with the clerk's division to request a notice of decision. Those individuals will be notified of the decision or the convening of future meetings on the application. Michael Compost, Manager of Planning, will present this application. Michael, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Louder.
I will. The next item before council is a recommendation report relating to minor variance application for the property municipally known as 84 House Lane, file number A-16/25. Council will recall that this application was previously before the Committee of Adjustment at a public meeting in August 2025. And since that time, the proposal has been revised in response to comments received, and staff are now returning with a recommendation for council's consideration. The subject lands are located on the west side of 4 House Lane within the Brown Settlement area, just south of Roseville Road. Property has an approximate area of 0.31 hectares with about 48.8 meters frontage onto 4 House Lane. While the lot does not front onto a public street, access is provided via 4 House Lane, which is a private road serving several properties along that lane. The site is currently developed with an existing single detached dwelling and a detached garage, and is serviced by municipal water and a private septic system. From a planning perspective, the lands are zone Z3 rural residential under the township zoning bylaw, and are designated settlement residential and ancillary rural area and protected countryside in the township official plan. Turning now to the proposal itself, the application before council is seeking permission to construct a new detached single car garage, which would include attic storage space. The proposed garage would measure approximately 4.6 meters by 8.5 meters for a total floor area of about 60 square meters and would have a maximum height of roughly 4.4 meters. The structure is proposed to be located in generally the same location as the existing detached garage, which is intended to be removed as part of this proposal. The images shown on the screen illustrate the revised perspectives of the proposed accessory building, which reflect the updated design that has been brought forward through this application. In addition to the new garage, the application is also seeking to formally recognize the township's interpretation of the lot lines for this property. As noted earlier, the lot does not front onto a public street, but instead obtains access via Fort House Lane, which has informed how the zoning provisions are being applied to this site. At the time of the original public meeting in August 2025, the applicant presented a proposal that included a building height of approximately 6.2 meters or about 20 feet and a private workshop located on the second floor. The images shown on the screen reflect that original proposal, which was presented to the committee at the time. Following the public meeting and in response to concerns raised by a neighboring property owner related to building height and visual privacy, the applicant has revised the proposal in several key ways. Specifically, the applicant has reduced the overall building height by approximately 1.8 meters. It removed the second floor windows facing the neighboring property to the east and eliminated the proposed second floor workshop, with that space now intended for attic storage only. These revisions were made to directly address the concerns that were raised and to reduce potential visual and privacy impacts. This slide shows the site plan drawing for the proposal. The proposed garage is located in the same general area as the existing detached garage on the property. On the drawing, the gray rectangular footprint represents the proposed accessory building, while the red dashed outline identifies the location of the existing garage, which is proposed to be removed. You'll also see how the building sits on the lot, including the front yard along Fort House Lane, as well as the side and rear yards, which are relevant to the minor variance request and the zoning interpretation for the property. Overall, the site plan demonstrates that the new structure is being positioned in a familiar and established location on the lot without expanding development into new areas of the property. This slide outlines the first two minor variances being requested through application A16/25. The first variance relates to section 6.4.1 of the zoning bylaw, which generally restricts accessory buildings from being located within a required side yard or in front of an established building line. The applicant is requesting relief to permit the proposed accessory garage to be located in front of the established building line, consistent with the existing development pattern on the property. The second variance relates to section 6.4.8, which requires that an accessory building not be located closer to the street than the principal dwelling on the same lot. In this case, the applicant is seeking permission for the accessory garage to be located closer to Fort House Lane than the main dwelling. These variances are primarily a result of the unique configuration of the lot and the fact that the property does not front onto a public street, but instead takes access from Fort House Lane. The proposed garage is intended to replace that existing structure. This slide outlines the remaining two variances. The first relates to section 6.8 of the zoning bylaw, which requires that a lot abut a public street in order for a building or structure to be erected. In this case, the subject property does not front onto a public street, but instead obtains access from Fort House Lane, which is a private lane. The requested variance is intended to recognize this long-established access arrangement and allow for the continued reasonable use of the property. The final variance relates to section 8.3.4, which requires a minimum rear yard setback of 7.5 meters. The application is requesting permission for a rear yard setback of approximately 4.6 meters based on the township's interpretation of the lot boundary and the established configuration of the property. Importantly, this reduced rear yard condition reflects the existing development pattern on the lot and is not being intensified by the proposal. The request for relief is intended to recognize the historic placement of buildings on the site rather than introducing the past. The next slide just shows some photos taken by planning staff during the site visit in the summer. The image on the left shows Fort House Lane, which is the private lane that provides access to the septic property from Roseville Road. And this photo helps illustrate the established access arrangement for the surrounding properties. The image on the right shows the existing single detached dwelling and the existing detached garage on the property. And as noted earlier, this is the applicant is proposing to remove the existing garage and construct the new detached garage in the same general location. The next set of photos provides another perspective of the existing detached garage and a four-house lane. The image on the left shows the existing accessory building as viewed from four-house lane. And the image on the right looks along four-house lane and helps illustrate the separation between the subject property at 84 House Lane and the neighboring property across the lane at 78 Four-House Lane. With respect to public correspondence, one written submission was received from the neighboring property owner at 78 Four-House Lane prior to the August 2025 public meeting. The concerns raised at that time related to privacy, visual impacts, building size and height, zoning compliance, and potential future use of the second floor of the proposed garage. Following that public meeting and through discussions involving township staff and the neighboring property owner, the applicant revised a proposal to address those concerns. These revisions included reducing the overall building height, removing those second floor windows facing the neighboring property, and eliminating the proposed second floor workshop with that space now intended for storage. And as a result of these changes, the revised design now complies with the maximum accessory building height permitted under zoning bylaw 689-83, and no longer requires relief from the committee of adjustment in that regard. Staff have also circulated the revised proposal to the neighboring property owner and can confirm that as of the date of this report, there are no outstanding objections to the proposal. With respect to agency circulation, the application was circulated to both internal departments and external commenting agencies. And as of the date of preparing this report for the January 26, 2026 Committee of Adjustment meeting, comments have been received from Township Fire, Engineering and Public Works, Canada Post, the Region of Waterloo, the Grand River Conservation Authority, and the Waterloo Catholic District School Board. And I can confirm that no concerns or objections were raised by any of the commenting agencies with respect to this application. Planning staff have reviewed the application having regard to the four tests of a minor variance. The first test is whether the variances meet the general intent and purpose of the official plan. The subject property is designated settlement residential and ancillary rural area and protected countryside, which permit low density residential uses and accessory buildings. The proposal involves the replacement of an existing detached garage with a new detached garage in generally the same location. No change in use or residential intensification is proposed, and the accessory structure remains subordinate to the existing dwelling. The revised design, including the reduced height, is compatible with the surrounding residential context and rural settlement character. In staff's opinion, the proposed variances meet the general intent and the purpose of the official plan. The second test is whether the variances meet the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. The property is zoned Z3 rural residential, which permits accessory buildings. The requested variances address longstanding site conditions, including access from a private lane, established building placement, interpretation of the rear yard setback, and lot orientation. The proposal reflects the existing development pattern and allows for the reasonable use of a legal lot of record. In staff's opinion, the proposed variances meet the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. The third test is whether the variances are desirable for the appropriate use of the land. In this case, the proposal improves the functionality of the site while maintaining the existing residential character. The design revisions that were brought forward directly address the privacy and visual impact concerns raised by the neighboring property owner. Staff also note that no outstanding objections remain, and no concerns or objections were received from any of the commenting agencies. The proposal is compatible with the surrounding uses and reflects the established development pattern along Four-House Lane. In staff's opinion, the proposed variances are desirable for the appropriate use of the land. And the fourth and final test is whether the variances are minor in nature. The requested variances are largely technical in nature and arise from the unique configuration of the lot and its access from private lane. Accordingly, the revised proposal now complies with the zoning bylaws maximum height provisions, does not intensify use, and is not anticipated to result in adverse impacts on adjacent properties. In staff's opinion, the proposed variances are minor in nature. And so in conclusion, planning staff are of the opinion that minor variance application A1625 satisfies all four tests of the minor variance as set out in the Planning Act. The proposal represents appropriate development, reflects the existing development pattern of the property, and addresses the concerns raised through the public consultation process. Accordingly, staff are satisfied that the application constitutes good planning, and for those reasons, staff are recommending approval of the application.
Thank you, Michael. Is there any member of the public that wishes to comment on this application? And I believe the applicant is online. If we have any questions, council, any questions? Seeing none, can I have the motion, please, Council Rowland?
Moved by myself, so by Councilor Tilly, that report number PD 06-2026 be received. And that minor variance application A1625 be requests to A, permit the construction of a detached accessory garage building in front of the established building line. Whereas section 6.4.1 of general zoning bylaw number 689-83 establishes that no person shall erect or cause be erected an accessory building within a required side yard or between any building lines established by this bylaw. B, permit an accessory building to be located closer to the street line than the principal dwelling on the same lot, whereas section 6.4.8 of general zoning bylaw number 689-83 establishes that notwithstanding any other provision of this bylaw in zone 2, zone 3, zone 4, or zone 5, no accessory building shall be located so that any part of said accessory building is closer to the street line than the front wall of the principal or main building located on the same lot. C, to permit the erection of an accessory building on a lot that does not abut public street and instead contains access via a private lane, in this case, 4-horse lane. Whereas section 6.8 of general zoning bylaw number 689-83 establishes that no lot shall be used, nor shall any building or structure be erected thereon or used for any purpose in any zone unless the front line of such lot abuts a public street as defined by this bylaw. D, to recognize a reduced rear yard setback of approximately 4.6 meters, whereas section 8.3.4 of general zoning bylaw number 689-83 establishes that a minimum rear yard setback of 7.5 meters is required. E, to recognize the township's interpretation of the lot boundary for the subject property whereby the eastern property line abutting 4-horse lane is identified as the front lot line. The northern and southern property lines are identified as interior side lot lines, and the western property line is identified as the rear lot line, whereas general zoning bylaw number 689-83 requires a setbacks of building place based on the established front, side, and rear lot lines be approved.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Somebody want to grab council rooms? Thank you, Michael. Yeah, there's a couple more seats out front if anybody wants a seat. The front. Nobody wants to sit at the front. Right. Councilor Rose doesn't sign it.
You enjoy your time.
All right, so there's no correspondence, adjournment, committee of adjustment, Council Williams, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Dr. Lee, that pursuant to the Planning Act, the public meeting of the Committee of Adjustment be adjourned at 6:39 p.m.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. All right. Public meetings and hearings, Council, Public Meeting Planning Act 8.1.1. Report number 01-2026, proposed zoning bylaw amendment for 92 Northumberland Street, file number ZC-08/25. Notice has been given in accordance with the Planning Act. The clerk will keep a record of all persons who provide comments on this application and those who register with the clerk's department to request a notice of decision. And that's the sign sheet at the back of your assignment. Those individuals will be notified of the decision or the convening of future meetings on this application. There's a sign sheet at the back table for the meeting to be completed by those who wish to know about future meetings. Michael Campos, Manager of Planning, will present this application. Michael, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the application before you this evening is for a zoning bylaw amendment for the property municipally addressed 92 Northumberland Street. This presentation has been provided as part of the statutory public meeting process under the Planning Act. The purpose of tonight is to introduce the application, outline the proposal, and to receive comments from council and members of the public. No decision on the merits of the application is being recommended this. The subject property is municipally addressed as 92 Northumberland Street and is located opposite Hall Street with the Myth River system directly abutting the property to the west. The site is approximately 0.88 hectares in size and has a corresponding frontage of about 45.8 meters along Northumberland Street. The property is centrally located within the urban area and is surrounded by a mix of low-density residential uses, community facilities, and mixed-use development. The site is currently occupied by Knox United Church, which is a long-standing institutional use that has been established on this property since 1888. Accessory parking areas associated with the church are located to the north, west, and southwest of the church building. Under the Township of North Dumfries official plan, the property is designated built-up area on map 2 and urban residential and ancillary on map 2.1. These designations generally anticipate residential and community-oriented uses in the urban area. A small portion of the lands at the rear of the property is also designated core environmental feature. which reflects the presence of the Nith River system and the associated environmental constraints. From a zoning perspective, the property is currently zoned Z13 institutional under the Township zoning bylaw. And this zoning permits the existing church use that is currently on the site. However, the current zoning does not permit a residential apartment building, which is why the applicant is before council this evening seeking a zoning bylaw. This slide shows a couple of photographs of the subject property to help provide some on-the-ground context. The photo on the left was taken from the rear of the church, looking back towards Northumberland Street. This area is currently used for parking associated with the church and is intended to continue functioning as parking as part of the proposal. The photo on the right shows the rear portion of the property, which is where the apartment building is generally proposed to be located. You can also see the natural features associated with the Nith River system toward the west, as well as the existing apartment building on Beach Street to the north. The applicant has submitted a zoning bylaw amendment application to establish site-specific zoning that would permit a residential apartment building on an underutilized portion of the property, while continuing to allow the existing use to remain on the site. As I mentioned earlier, the property is currently zoned institutional, which permits the church, but does not permit a residential apartment building. As a result, a zoning bylaw amendment application is required to establish the apartment building as the permitted use. The intent of the proposed zoning is also to introduce site-specific development standards that are tailored to this site, taking into account the surrounding residential context, the existing church use, and the environmental features that are associated with the Nith River system. The image on your screen shows the general concept plan submitted by the applicant, which illustrates the proposed location of the apartment building to the rear of the church, the internal drive aisles, and the overall site layout. I'll speak in more detail about the development itself on the next couple of slides. The proposed development includes a 4-story residential apartment building containing a total of 33 residential units intended to be for rental purposes. That unit mix includes 9 one-bedroom units and 24 two-bedroom units. The apartment building is proposed to be located to the rear of the existing Knox United Church in an area that is currently being used as a gravel parking lot. A shared parking arrangement is being proposed between the church and the apartment building, with a total of 86 parking spaces to be provided on the site. 50 parking spaces are required for the apartment building based on a parking rate of 1.5 spaces per unit. The applicant has proposed a parking rate for the church that equates to 1 parking space per 7 available seats in the church, which equates to 22 parking spaces. The remaining 14 spaces that have been shown on the conceptual plan are considered overflow parking. The site design also incorporates landscape buffering along the north property line, a setback from the Nith River Valley system of 10 meters, and a paved drive aisles and parking areas. The development is proposed to be serviced by existing municipal water and sanitary services on Northumberland Street, with stormwater management and slope stability considerations being addressed through supporting technical studies that are currently under review. This slide just shows a larger version of the conceptual site plan to give council a better sense of how the proposal is laid out on the property. The existing Knox United Church is shown on the right side of the plan, with the proposed apartment building located to the rear of the church, generally within the area that is currently used for parking. You can see that the access to the site continues to be taken from Northumberland Street, with internal drive aisles connecting both the church, parking areas, and the proposed apartment. The majority of the parking is located between the church and the apartment building, reflecting the proposed shared parking arrangement. The plan also illustrates the setback from Nith River Valley system to the west, along with the landscape buffering and tree retention in that area. And it's important to note that this is a conceptual plan at this stage. The detailed layout, parking configuration, landscaping, and servicing will be further refined. To facilitate the proposal, the applicant has submitted the site-specific zoning bylaw amendment to permit the apartment building on the property. The zoning bylaw would also introduce site-specific development standards informed by these technical studies that have been submitted to support of the application. And these standards would address matters such as maximum building height, setbacks from adjacent residential uses, unit mix and overall unit count, and parking requirements, including the proposed shared parking arrangement. The zoning would also establish landscaped area and buffering requirements, as well as limits of development and setbacks from the river system and stable top bank. Overall, the intent of the proposed zoning framework is to appropriately regulate the development, ensure land use compatibility with the surrounding area, and address the site-specific constraints associated with this property. Notice of the application and the date of the public meeting was circulated to property owners within 120 meters of the subject property in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act. A notification sign was also posted on the property along Northumberland Street to advise the public of the application and tonight's meeting. As a result of that circulation, staff have received written comments from members of the public including expressions of both support for the proposed development and concerns. The following slide provides a summary of the comments that have been received. On the supportive side, staff have received broad support from members of Knox United Church and the wider community. Many of the comments speak to the church's longstanding role as a community hub and provider of social services in the area. Supportive comments also emphasize the importance of generating revenue to help maintain the historic church building and ensure its long-term sustainability. Several residents have also noted the need for additional rental and affordable housing options in the community and have expressed support for residential intensification in a central, walkable location close to services. At the same time, staff have received comments raising concerns with the proposal. These concerns generally relate to traffic and safety along Northumberland Street and Hall Street, access to the site from a single driveway, and the adequacy of parking for both the church and the apartment building, particularly during peak periods and during winter conditions. Additional concerns are raised regarding the potential impacts on nearby residential streets, as well as the questions around building scale, neighborhood fit, and the long-term implications for church operations. All of these comments will be considered as part of staff's ongoing review of the application. This slide summarizes the comments that have been received from internal departments and external agencies to date. Staff are still awaiting on several comments. Starting with Township Engineering through RJ Burnside comments were provided related to technical matters on the site. These include the need to confirm appropriate top of slope setbacks in coordination with the Grand River Conservation Authority, as well as the design of the proposed stormwater outlet. RJ Burnside has also noted that the proposed retaining wall and the access corridor will need to be addressed through an updated slope stability analysis. The region of Waterloo also provided comments on the application, and the region has advised that below-grade dewatering and vertical geothermal systems are not supported at this location without further technical review. A road widening dedication will be required along Northumberland Street, and additional refinement is needed to the servicing, grading, and stormwater management approach, including submission of a revised functional servicing report. The region also noted that private waste collection will be required on the site. With respect to the Waterloo Catholic District School Board, no objections were raised. The school board has advised that education development charges will be collected prior to the issuance of any building permits. An additional, This slide summarizes comments received from the remaining agencies. Starting with the Grand River Conservation Authority, the GRCA has advised that they are not in a position to recommend approval of the zoning bylaw amendment at this time. Their comments relate primarily to unresolved hazard land and environmental constraints associated with the site. The GRCA has identified significant valley slopes, floodplain areas, and wetland features on the property that limit the developable area. As part of their review, they are requesting an updated slope stability analysis and revisions to the proposed zoning frame. They've also advised that the land within hazard areas and required setbacks should be excluded from development and zoned appropriately to reflect their long-term function and constraints. Comments were also received from Six Nations of the Grand River. The Six Nations are not supportive at this time. They do not support development or parking within 30 meters of wetlands and has requested enhanced buffering, environmental protection, and mitigation measures. Six Nations also has encouraged the incorporation of bird-friendly design, native landscaping, and broader ecological enhancements as part of the site design. Finally, Canada Post has advised that they have no objection to the proposal. They have indicated that mail service would be provided through a centralized mailbox installation with postal details to be confirmed as the project advances. So at this time, staff are not recommending that council make a decision on the merits of the zoning bylaw amendment. Instead, staff are recommending that all of the comments and correspondence that are received from members of the public and government agencies through the consultation process be returned to staff for further review and consideration as part of a future report to council. In preparing a future recommendation report, staff will be considering a number of matters, including all comments received through the consultation process and whether revisions to the proposal or the zoning provisions are appropriate. Staff will also be reviewing the proposal's conformity with provincial interests and the regional and township official plans, including intensification and housing objectives. Other key matters for further review include land use compatibility with surrounding residential uses, particularly with respect to build form, height, setbacks, and privacy, as well as environmental constraints and hazard lands associated with the Niff River Valley system. Staff will also continue to assess slope stability, top of slope setbacks, and the placement of grading, servicing, and retaining structures, along with parking supply, shared parking arrangements, site circulation, municipal servicing, stormwater management, and infrastructural requirements. As part of a future recommendation report, staff will also be reviewing matters related to urban design, site layout, and how the proposed development integrates with the existing use. Staff will continue to consider all agency and public comments and how those comments may be addressed through the revisions to the proposal. At this time, as part of the consideration of this report, staff are recommending that no decision be made on merits of the planning application and that all comments and correspondence received with consultation process be returned to staff before they consider them. Thank you. And that concludes.
Thank you, Michael. I believe that Glenn Wellings has registered to speak via Zoom. Welcome, Glenn.
Good evening, Your Worship and council members. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Oh, perfect, perfect. Well, nice to be here. And thank you, Michael, for your presentation. That was very helpful. I will be brief, Your Worship. First of all, my name is Glenn Wellings. I'm a planning consultant for Knox United Church, and I will provide some introductory remarks and comments just on the church itself. Due to aging and decreasing attendance and depletion of funds, the congregations such as the Knox United Church need to look at alternative revenue streams, and in some cases, and in this case in particular, some development opportunities. And it is a matter of survival for a lot of churches throughout Ontario with the dwindling attendance and aging population. The application before Township this evening, this will contribute, in my opinion, to the community by providing more affordable rental accommodation in a form that I would suggest makes good planning sense with minimal impact to the community. Your Worship and council members, I have prepared a detailed planning justification report in support of the application, and that provides for my planning opinion of the proposed 4-story 33-unit apartment building, rental apartment building, I should stress, in how the proposal achieves many provincial, regional, and local policies and directives, and also analyzes some of the more technical aspects of the proposed development. As Michael mentioned in his presentation, there are some outstanding technical matters that we do need to tackle and address, so that there is some work to be done, and we're on it. We're trying to resolve those matters as quickly as possible. In terms of the proposal, it's my opinion that the proposal is consistent with the provincial planning statement and conforms to the Region of Waterloo and Township official plans. And council, you'll note that the application being sought this evening is an amendment to the zoning bylaw. There is no official plan amendment that is required to facilitate this application, which in my opinion is significant. In my opinion, in terms of the built form and proposed height and density, it's my opinion that the proposal represents compatible development and similar development to the adjacent apartment building on Butte Street, and in my opinion is sufficiently separated from some of the existing lower density residential homes in the immediate area. So, Your Worship and council members, I'm happy to answer any questions of council and any questions that might arise through the public meeting. And I look forward to listening to some of the presentations this evening. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Glenn. I'm going to open it to the floor in a second. First, remember that everybody wants supportive housing. Everybody wants housing for everybody, but we want to do it right. Okay. So that's what the discussion is tonight. What is the right way? That's what your opinions are. And they are opinions, and it's Michael's job to make them into facts, to find out the actual truth of what works and what doesn't work. We did not waive the fees. We deferred the fees to whoever purchases the land. And we can't guarantee supportive housing builders will purchase the land, although there are several out there that do work with churches. So we can only be hopeful that way, but the fee will be based upon who purchases it, and they will be charged the right amount on that purchase, should this go forward. And things do go forward, but they also don't go forward, if anybody remembers the Hall property and the development at the end of English Street 30 years ago, where all the design was done, everything was done, the housing. Actually, we were considering moving that. It looked like a great project. That's 30 years. It has never moved forward from that. That doesn't mean this won't move forward. It means that this is at the beginning stages. Don't get frustrated by that. listen to your neighbors, even if you don't agree with them, and state your points as logically as you can without attacking, because that's not who we are. You get into the habit, or you hear it from the south of the border, we don't need that here. You have 5 minutes. I believe I have a list of people that will just to speak, and then I'll open it to the floor. So Michael Stumpus first. Michael, are you here?
Yeah.
Come on, is the microphone, there is no microphone, Michael. You can stand wherever you want.
So I'm speaking in opposition to proposed rental farm. And there's some concerns that I have living directly adjacent to the driveway. And my property backs right onto the property that's going to be built up. First, when construction starts, the noise and dust will be prolonged vibration. There'll be just a significant disruption to my daily life and the nearby residents, including those who work from home, have children, or have health sensitivities. It's given the close proximity to existing homes, the impact will be substantial. The increased volume and safety, the proposed development of 33 residential units will significantly increase traffic on already limited local roads. This raises concerns related to congestion, pedestrian safety, emergency vehicle access, particularly during peak hours. Driveway access. The increase in traffic will directly impede our ability to safely enter and exit our driveway. This is a daily safety concern that affects our quality of life and should be seriously considered. Parking demand. While the proposal indicates 33 units, it is realistic to expect 60 to 70 vehicles, as many households in this village own 2 vehicles. If on-site parking is insufficient, overflow parking will spill onto nearby streets, further worsening congestion. Loss of privacy, and this is a big one. A 4-story building located so close to the existing homes will overlook neighboring properties, resulting in a significant and permanent loss of privacy for us. Height and scale of the building. The 4-story structure is out of scale with the existing character of the neighborhood. The height and mass of the building are excessive for this location and represent overdevelopment that is incompatible with the single-family homes. Parking lot lighting and light pollution. Overnight lighting associated with the parking area will introduce light pollution into nearby homes and yards. This will negatively affect sleep, privacy, and enjoyment of our property, particularly if lighting is not fully shielded or restricted. Impact on use and enjoyment of my property. Taken together, increased noise, traffic, lighting, congestion, and loss of privacy. This development will have a major negative impact on our reasonable use and enjoyment of our property. These impacts are permanent, should not be dismissed. For these reasons, I respectfully counsel reconsider this proposal or require significant revisions to ensure compatibility with the existing neighborhood and protect the quality of life of the current resident. That's all.
Thank you, Michael. Next up, I have Julia Bernier. Julia? Oh, great, wherever you want.
Check my voice. We're also here in opposition of the proposed amendment. We hope the council members will review with careful regard for consistency with the provincial policy statement and long-term public interest of the community of Ayr. While intensification and housing supply are recognized as planning objections, the PPS is clear that growth must occur in a manner that's safe, sustainable, infrastructure supported, and protective of natural heritage systems. The betterment of the community, guided by thoughtful, long-term strategic planning, must be the top priority over short-term capital gain. In its current form and location, the proposal raises serious concerns related to public safety, environmental protection, infrastructure capacity, and community compatibility. Here's our points. So number 1, traffic safety and public health. The PPS directs that land use patterns shall be based on public health and safety and promote safe movement for pedestrians and vehicles. Northumberland Street is already congested during peak hours, with frequent traffic backups exacerbated by the rail crossings.
This location is also a designated school crossing, serving children attending the public and Catholic elementary schools. Despite existing controls, vehicles frequently fail to stop. Introducing a high-density residential use at this site will significantly increase traffic volume and conflict points, directly contradicting the PPS policies requiring development to be located and designed to minimize risk to public health and safety. Number 2, site access, parking, and compatibility. The PPS requires that intensification occur where it can be appropriately supported by infrastructure and compatible with existing uses. The single-lane Church Drive will have difficulty accommodating the traffic volumes associated with 33-unit residential building alongside the established institution and community functions. The proposal further appears to reduce parking supply despite the site's role as long-standing community hub, hosting numerous community-related events. Insufficient parking will result in spillover onto surrounding streets, reduced accessibility, and disruption to existing uses. Outcomes inconsistent with good planning principles. Waste management and operational viability. The PPS requires development to be supported by appropriate municipal services and facilities. The proposal does not clearly demonstrate how waste and recycling for 33 units will safely be stored and collected on a constrained site. Concerns include limited space, safe access for commercial collection vehicles, and increased risk of improper disposal in nearby natural areas. Without a detailed enforceable waste management plan, this proposal cannot be considered operationally viable. Environmental protection and GRCA precedent. The property is located in close proximity to sensitive marshland and watershed features under the interest and oversight of the Grand River Conservation Authority. The PPS is explicit that development shall protect natural heritage features and water resources, and that negative impacts shall be avoided. Stormwater and snow management are of particular concern. This minimum 10-meter setback from the slope provides little margin for effective mitigation, salt latent snow storage, and runoff from increased impervious surfaces presents clear risk to the downstream marshlands. Approving development of this intensity so close to the water course sets concerning precedent for future sites within close proximity to the water, incrementally weakening watershed protections and undermining the intent of both the PPS and the GRCA's mandate. Infrastructure capacity in the Waterloo region water supply. The PPS requires that development be supported by demonstrated infrastructure capacity, particularly for water and waterway services. It's unclear whether air systems, from what we could find last comprehensively reviewed in 2012, can sustainably support high density residential development at this location. The concern is amplified by ongoing and widely reported issues related to the Waterloo region's water supply, which have become major public issues due to cumulative overdevelopment. The PPS discourages growth that exceeds servicing capacity and compromises long-term stability. Are we willing to follow the same path? Number 6, community safety and well-being. We have concerns about theft with high-density residential parking operations around the clock and intensify these risks. And we feel like there's reasonable alternative locations to provide high-density housing. Conclusion. While addressing housing needs are important, the PPS is clear that growth must occur in the right place at the right scale and with the right supports. The betterment of the community quality, sound strategic planning must outweigh short-term financial considerations.
Thank you, Julia. Dennis Moss. No, stay.
Okay.
I have a few concerns about the rezoning application for 92 Northumberland Street. First being the volume of traffic in and out. As a neighbor to 92 Northumberland Street, I'm concerned for the children, families, and general public using the school crossing in front of the church. I walk in that area almost daily and know that it can be difficult to cross Northumberland Street at the best of times due to the volume of traffic. Presently, there is very little traffic coming from the property at 92 Northumberland Street and little pedestrian traffic. The current drawing that was submitted does not allow for a sidewalk from the new building at the back of the property out to Northumberland Street. With the addition of a sidewalk, the driveway is not wide enough for 2 cars to pass and ensure the safety of any pedestrians. When 35 Butte Street was in development, it had been planned to have access from Northumberland Street. The council at that time, 30+ years ago, instructed them to move the access to Butte Street as Northumberland Street was too busy. Living in a building of comparable size in the same neighborhood, I'm very aware of the volume of traffic in and out of a parking lot all day long servicing that many people. There will not only be an increase in car traffic in and out, but also delivery vehicles, waste management, and postal deliveries. I think it is short-sighted of the church community to think that the volume of traffic will not change. Currently, their property does not have 33+ people on the move every day of the week. As a result of the additional traffic coming from 92 Northumberland Street, I expect there will be a cost to the region down the road to provide additional signage, possibly an overhead lit crossing sign to ensure the safety of anyone crossing in front of the property. Lack of sufficient parking. The plan to have non-assigned parking will not create community among the people residing there, but a competition for parking space. The idea of not providing the proper ratio of parking is concerning. Over the years, Driver Check, the community house, neighbors on Northumberland backing directly onto the parking lot, and residents of 35 Butte Street have made arrangements with Knox United Church for parking as there isn't enough parking available in the area. Over the spring through fall of this year, the staff at the community house were parking along Butte Street because their home was allowed to be built without the appropriate parking on their property. Butte Street isn't wide enough to have parking and local traffic. When this was brought to the home's attention, they moved on to the Aber parking lot. Not having adequate parking at the new apartment building will only lead to parking issues for the streets and businesses in the surrounding area. Continually allowing concessions to well thought out parking requirements puts a strain on all the streets and businesses. The church has traditionally and continues to host large community events. Where are the attendees to park? The church will hold 150 people on the main floor alone, as noted in the submission. Think of the congestion that is caused by the holiday train each November, but on a more regular, slightly smaller basis. Church services, many of the church events, meetings, and use of the church by other organizations such as Scouts predominantly happens when the majority of residents of the apartment building would be home. First come, first served parking will not be ideal and may have residents forced to look for parking elsewhere because they can't park at home. Snow removal also impacts parking. Where will the snow be piled? The GRCA will not allow pushing the snow over the bank. At our parking lot, we lose 3 to 4 parking spaces every winter due to a need for snow storage. There have been rumors that the redevelopment committee was in talks with 35 Butte Street to remedy the parking situation. As the chair of the board for 35 Butte Street, I can say that this is not the case. There was one meeting approximately 2 years ago and no further communication regarding parking. The exclusion that the applicant is asking for does not take into consideration the true effects of the request and will only lead to issues for the residents of the apartment building, church members, and those in the surrounding neighborhood. Only one access. Most recently, Kirkwood increased the size of their building. They were required to have 2 accesses onto their property for emergency purposes. The zoning application for 92 Northumberland is requesting that they be granted an exclusion to this requirement. The applicant simply doesn't have the capacity to provide a second access at this time, but is that a valid reason for an exclusion? Control of property. Some owners at 35 Butte Street have brought up the concern that Knox will lose control of the property once sold and will no longer be able to ensure that the developer will build what they have envisioned and what Knox has provided as part of their application.
Last minute, Glennis.
I understand the need for the applicant to sell their property to create an endowment and security into the future. I also understand and support the need for affordable housing in the township. 2 things can be true at once, but the need for housing shouldn't make us blind to the issues that will be created for the residents of the apartment building, the church members, and the neighboring community if this project were to go ahead with the exclusions that have been requested.
Thank you, Bonnie. Bonnie Brown.
Mine is almost, I'm Bonnie Brown. I've lived in there for my whole life, 7 years, and I'm against the project. So, I am concerned with the proposal for rezoning development. I am not opposed to change. Anybody knows me, I'm involved with Kirkwood. I've lived here, I've seen it grow. I'm not opposed to change. and I recognize the need for affordable housing. However, I have significant and valid reservations for the request for the development of the church property. In fact, I would argue that the council should also share these concerns as a zoning change and exemptions to bylaw policies need to occur for this building to proceed. Council develop bylaws for safety and logistical reasons, and they should not dismiss the importance of upholding these policies. An exemption should not be guaranteed and should be denied for safety and functional reasons. For instance, inadequate parking presents significant risks ranging from safety hazards and legal liabilities to negative economical and environmental impacts. Insufficient parking spaces can lead to increased accidents and pedestrian dangers. It's coming, come on, there's no way sidewalk through this. Presently, the proposal shows 84 parking spaces on the map. Please note, the parking requirement is not only Sunday service, however, every function that the church may host, including funerals, fundraising, weddings, musical displays. The proposed building contains 33 units, 24 of which are 2-bedroom. Men and the most Ontario municipals mandating 1 to 1.45 parking spaces per unit. So this, a 33 unit would require 50 spaces are needed for the building alone. This figure does not account for visitor parking. Unfortunately, our municipality cannot afford to allow the lower parking limit as those towns or cities provide street parking to compensate for the limited on-site parking. Currently, there is no parking in close proximity to the church, such as on Northern Summerlin Street or Hall Street to Elliott's or Inglis to Thompson or Butte Street. It's only one way now. Another crucial reason for the meeting of 1.5 parking ratio for the units is many residents in Ayr own their own vehicles out of necessity due to the lack of public transportation available in town. Notably, I maintain the 1 parking spot per unit will not meet the needs of the tenants, and the higher number of spaces will barely suffice to accommodate both residents, visitors, any professionals such as visiting nurses, pharmacists delivering medications, or personal support staff that may need to provide assistance to tenants, and especially during times the church is open and hosting an event. Tenants have the right to expect to be able to park within close proximity to their unit, which this location severely diminished, especially with no assigned parking space. Imagine coming home from groceries and not being able to find a parking space at night. According to the current zoning bylaw, the main floor of 702 square meters of the church requires 61 spaces. This is without the additional space of the second floor, which is in use during special events and would require extra parking. The 22 parking spaces requested is far below the required amount per bylaws and should be insufficient for regular use. According to the members of the church, after the current renovations, events holding up to 300 people will be available. Where will parking be for these guests? Additionally, we reside in a province with 4 seasons, and parking spaces are always lost to snowbanks, and street parking in the winter is often prohibited. Notably, 1/4 of those spaces today were unavailable as a result of the snowbank. I went down and I've taken pictures. The whole south end and west end are full of snow taken away from the parking spaces. I do not foresee this changing in the future, nor can I envision a successful contingency plan other than an enclosed parking garage, which I understand is not being considered.
You have 1 minute, Bonnie.
1 more minute? Okay, I'll quit. To expound the issues with the snow, Grand River Conservation owns, and it goes on to say, we cannot be that. Green space needs to be protected, and we need to ensure this is enforced and assault is not allowed to negatively impact the surrounding protected habitat. Again, I talk about the exit going on, the one exit going in and out. And also coming out does not have good line of sight, and it's with Hall Street. Anybody who knows the area, they know how bad it is. A crossing guard, I talk about that. Everybody else has talked about crossing guard. We all have the same concern. A council may refuse exemptions even if they believe the organization provides a valuable service. And in this instance, I believe council needs to exercise their power and deny the request for bylaw exemptions and zoning changes for the proposed multi-unit residential development. I find it interesting too, this is an aside, that everybody keeps referring it to a low income housing. I have heard nothing about that And not only that, it is so far back, if anybody has any kind of sense to know what it's gonna cost to run the services from Northumberland Street back to that building, they would know something, because I know how expensive it was just to go from Fanning Street to Kirkwood, let alone going all that distance and riding hydro poles and everything. It's going to prohibit it being a low-income housing.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Younger. Thank you, where'd you go?
Here.
Okay.
Thank you, thank you. You'll be, I should keep it under the time too, it should be pretty quick, so. Hello, everyone. I think I'm just gonna kind of follow and shadow many that have spoken before me. However, I'd like to just submit a few of my concerns as well. First and foremost, my land use incompatibility. To me, a 4-story apartment building does not blend well with the existing character of the neighborhood. Not to mention will spoil the picturesque view that we have of the Nith River. One of the things that I noted on the of the church's website was a comment made by someone who did a report suggesting what that view looked like from within the church. So that was really nice to see on their website, and that's going to get taken away if we put a building back there. Now, depending on the placement of that building, it may also cause shadowing to the current surrounding properties. Loss of community institutional space. So as we all know, Knox has been a large hub for the community, supporting many community groups such as the Beavers, the Air Theater, the Air Paris Band. You know, I could go on with what they are supporting for us today. You know, it's a joy to see that so many people enjoy the different types of activities that the church supports. The result of that zoning change would impact safety and limit the parking for those popular events. And I think many of us have talked about that. But I'm sure that either due diligence has already been done or will be done to determine parking. However, I would like to ask if this study has been done, when was it done? Was it done during an Air Theater parking or production or an Air Paris Band concert when we see a very large increase in numbers of parking needs? We see the congregation. We know what that parking looks like. I see it every Sunday and it's a joy to see. I then see when the Beavers come and when the theater is there, I see how that parking increases, and I see the people who are parking back in the grassy wetland area where we're probably not supposed to be parking, but we do. And I can tell you, it's amazing that the people that are supporting. And we also have the overflow parking, and someone mentioned from the downtown businesses where they are suffering from parking and a few people are parking in the parking lot. The additional cars, even at 1 car per unit, would certainly put a strain on what the church offers our community today. I struggle to understand how our current road infrastructure can support this change, as the surrounding streets are not for the best for parking, as we all know from events like the Christmas train, where we have cars parked on both sides of the street, making it virtually impossible for a car, let alone an emergency vehicle, to pass. Having 2 cars coming and going via the current driveway is almost impossible to turn in when another car is trying to turn out. I can't imagine having an emergency vehicle coming in when a car is parked in the driveway because there's no parking available. I also question the safety aspect of the additional traffic in the parking lot when we have young children playing in the churchyard for some of their group activities. And those activities are happening in the evening when the parking would be there for everyone who is now living in that building. Not to mention those who are using the sidewalk past the church, so trying to get out when the children and adults are walking past. Northumberland appears to already be over capacity. Adding to it seems to be a move in the wrong direction, and I feel it is a great safety issue. While I do not support the request for the zoning change, I will continue to support the church and the group it supports today. I do hope that the mission statement I read recently on the website that supported growth in the congregation bodes well for Knox. And as we say to our children, it's not you I'm having difficulty with, it's your action. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Now open it to the public. Anyone else wish to speak? Anyone else? All right, councilors, any questions or comments? Councilor Williams.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to staff, what does this shared parking concept look like? Is this like a
will there be assigned for the apartment building? Is that proposed, or is there? For the church, or like what does this shared mean?
So through you, Madam Mayor, at this time, we haven't actually gone to the details of what that shared parking arrangement might look like. As we're reviewing the application right now, and once we get to detailed site design, if this moves forward, we'll be looking at those types of more detailed pieces. But as part of this, we're looking at with the uses that are proposed for the site in terms of the apartment building, the church, all of the functions that the church use regularly. What does that parking function look like on the site? And does the 86 spaces meet that, and can it accommodate it? Will it create issues? As part of that too, we're obviously going to be in discussions with the church in terms of how that arrangement might look and what we might, how would that actually operate in terms of signage. There will have to be dedicated spaces for the residents. But in terms of visitor parking, we'll have to have dedicated visitor parking spaces. But that arrangement we're working through, it's going to be part of our review. We're going to detail that in our discussions with the planning consultant, the team at the church, and then through our review of the actual parking justification. And finally, at the site designs, that's when those will be implemented in terms of what are the actual functions and how will that work.
See you on the field.
Madam Mayor, through Councillor Wilms, to augment and add to statements that have just been made by Mr. Campos. We have to start with how much parking is required on the site, given the continued use of the church and its ancillary uses, and then the drivers attributed to the unit mix and residential composition. Then the question becomes, can that actually fit on the property, recognizing setbacks from adjacent properties, the travel aisles, and the setback in the appropriate distance from the valley system and the stable top bank. Once those parameters are better understood, and you actually know how much land you can actually make available for parking, you demise your parking corridors. And can you actually fit the development? And then it's a scaling exercise after that. Similar to what we did in a downtown development, much smaller in scale, there is a shared use agreement there between the office use and the emerging residential. And there was a registered shared parking agreement that was placed against the title of the property. So whether it stays with one property or at some point, if it's actually divided into two parcels, the parking requirements carry with the title of the property. So it doesn't go with the ownership, it goes with the title of the property. And there would have to be a minimum number of car park spaces reserved and protected in the longer term for the church, that's ancillary uses, and a minimum number of car park spaces available for the residential use, and it's long term. Then if there is freeboard in terms of surplus spaces, those would then be articulated as shared and available to float based on peak demands that might occur from one use or the other in the longer period of time. So there are legal instruments that would be registered on the title of the property to protect a minimum number of spaces for each of the two uses. But you have to start with how much car park requirements are driven by the two land use activities, institutional, residential.
Councillor Roman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the comment I have, I guess, is reflecting on what Mr. Welling said originally. I see a church here that's struggling for survival. And I don't think Knox Church is coming here tonight because they really want to develop anything in their backyard. I think they have to. And I think if they don't, the church could fold. I hate to say it, but that's happens to a lot of churches. If the church folds and the building is taken back by the United Church of Canada, it'll be developed, it'll be torn down, it'll be turned into apartment building or condos. This whole discussion will be happening again in that time period with a developer from Toronto or something coming in that wants to build a massive condominium building there. This is a way that I think that we as a community can control what happens on that site. You working with the church group, put something inappropriate as opposed to the United Church just selling it, and then we're stuck with some developer putting up a giant building. So for me, I would rather work with the community group that's in place and work with them and try to make something happen that's going to work for the community and be held by some group that's gonna buy it when the church is gone. And then we'll have no choice but to follow PPS, with PPS, as we know, is evolving and changing to making more density, more housing, more rental accommodation. That's something that we as a council are being forced to ask to deal with all the time. So I think we have to be really cautious how we move forward here. I would just like to be able to move forward with a group that wants to cooperate with us, cooperate with the community, and not necessarily some developer who's just gonna come in and just wants to make money. So that's my general comment.
And I would like to state that I want to do the right thing. Regardless of anything else, I want it to be right. I want development done right in this community. I want everyone to be safe and have a decent place where they feel safe. That doesn't mean this won't happen. Doesn't mean this will happen. It means that we look at all the options and we make the right decisions for our community. We have a great community. We have great people. And they deserve to feel safe, and they deserve to accept sometimes what happens because it's supposed to happen, and sometimes reject because it's supposed to be rejected. Our job is to open our eyes, listen, and do what's best. We know parking's a problem. We know safety is a problem. Those things can be looked at. They may be able to be mitigated. They may not be able to be mitigated. This is just a public meeting of the first rounds of what may or may not be moving forward. This is just a fact-basing place, and that's exactly what my staff is supposed to do, is to give the facts. And whether, what happens to Knox, they've done very well in surviving a lot of other bumps along the road. And I hope they'll remain there because it's a beautiful structure that is a counterpoint to this community. It is an amazing structure. And to have that lost would be a great loss to the community. So this is just the beginning, folks. And with dialogue and openness with each other and dealing with, the reason the things are in the act is to protect us all. So the parking spaces, we know what a nightmare parking could be when there's not adequate. And the GRCA lands, we need to know what's solid ground there and what's not, and what's wetlands that could, with an impact of construction, have a bigger effect. We need all the information so we can make good decisions, so we can all be proud of the outcome, because we all want housing here. We want to downsize, some of us. We want to have supportive housing for our next generation, that the people that grew up here that can't afford to live here anymore. We want it, but we want it done right. Councillor Tilly.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In regards to Councillor Roman's comment about maintaining and having some control without letting it all walk away at this point, I can't agree more. The aspect that I'm thinking about from being a previous contractor, obviously with the land and the thought process would be to try and have the highest amount of units in the amount of land that's available. And then I think that's the sticking point. I think that's honestly where the sticking point could be changed or made, but there's a limited amount of space that's available. So that's why I'm tracking, that's what I'm watching, that's what I'm kind of expecting to see where that median can meet, where it could match up with the space that's available, if it's based on parking and safety for coming and going into the property. So I mirror and echo what you said, but I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, well, where could that median be? Where could that balance point be?
And that's not our job. Our staff is to research that and what can happen and what cannot happen. And we will go with the information that they give us, because they're the professionals and they're the ones that'll get crap if they do it wrong. If they won't. No, because they care as much as we do. We want the right thing, and we all want housing for our next generation, for our retiring parents, for us as we retiring down, but we want it done right. And that's what this council wants to do. So any other comments? Motion, Councillor Tilly, please.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Roman, that PD report number 01/2026 be received, and all comments and correspondence received through the consultation process be returned to staff for further consideration of future reports to council on the disposition of this matter.
All those in favor? Here, thank you. Councilor. Folks, you can stay if you want to go enjoy your night.
Hey, go ahead.
All right, I'm used to the microphone. 8.1.2, number PD 05-2026 proposed zoning bylaw amendment for 3027 Cedar Creek Road, file number ZC-07/25. Notice has been given in accordance with the Planning Act. The clerk will keep a record of all persons who provide comments on this application and those who register with the clerk's department to request a notice of decision. Those individuals will be notified of the decision or the convening of future meetings on this application. There is a sign-in sheet at the table at the back of the meeting room to complete for those who wish future notice related to this file. Michael Compost, Manager of Planning, will present this application. Michael, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The second application before council is a zoning bylaw amendment for the property municipal address 3027 Cedar Creek Road. Similar to the previous item, this presentation is being provided as part of the public meeting process under the Planning Act. The purpose of this evening is to introduce the application, outline the proposal, and receive comments from council and members of the public. No decision on the merits of the application is being recommended at this time. The lands are located on the south side of Cedar Creek Road between Northumberland Street and Cedar Creek Road and Highway 401 interchange, with Highway 401 forming the southern boundary of the site. The property is approximately 21 hectares in size. and has roughly 313 meters frontage along Cedar Creek Road, which is a regional arterial roadway designed to accommodate higher traffic volumes, including truck traffic. The site currently contains a single detached dwelling and an accessory structure, both of which are located well back from the Cedar Creek Road frontage. And the balance of the property consists of largely undeveloped agricultural lands, along with natural heritage features, including woodland and wetland areas. Under the Township of North Dumfries official plan, the eastern portion of the property is designated Highway 401, Regional Road 97 employment area, and rural employment area on map 2. Those same lands are also identified as prime industrial, strategic reserve, and dry industrial commercial on map 2.27. The western portion of the property is designated prime agricultural area on map 7 of the official plan. From a zoning perspective, the entire property is currently zoned Z1 agriculture under the township zoning bylaw. While the official plan identifies a portion of the lands for employment uses, the existing zoning does not permit industrial or employment related development, which is why a zoning bylaw amendment is required to implement the applicable official plan designation. This slide just includes a couple of photographs of the subject lands. The photo on the left shows the western portion of the property, which is largely undeveloped and consists of agricultural lands, natural heritage features, including woodland and wetland areas. The photo on the right looks toward the eastern portion of the property, where you can see existing industrial development associated with the Highway 401 and Regional Road 97 employment area in the broader context. These images are intended to give council a sense of the scale of the property, its largely undeveloped character today, and the relationship between the site, surrounding agricultural lands, natural features, and nearby employment uses. The applicant has submitted a zoning bylaw amendment to facilitate the development of a warehouse and truck terminal facility on the eastern portion of the subject lands. That eastern portion of the property is designated for employment uses under both the regional and township official plans, whereas the balance of the lands are designated for agricultural and environmental purposes. The applicable policy framework divides the site into these distinct land use areas, with employment uses anticipated along Cedar Creek Road and closer to Highway 401, and agricultural and environmental designations applying to the remainder of the property. Importantly, the proposed development is confined entirely to the employment designated portion of the land. No development is proposed within the primary agricultural areas or within core environmental features, which are intended to remain undeveloped and protected. As a result, the zoning bylaw amendment is required to bring the zoning into conformity with existing official plan designations and to permit the proposed employment use on the appropriate portion of the site. So the proposal includes a single primary warehouse building oriented towards Cedar Creek Road with truck and trailer parking areas located to the rear of the building. The warehouse itself is proposed to be 2 stories in height with a maximum height of approximately 13.5 meters and a gross floor area of roughly 10,000 square meters or about 107,000 square feet. At the rear of the building, the proposal includes 19 loading bays and 5 repair bays to support the warehouse and logistics operation. Access to the site is proposed by way of 2 full movement driveways from Cedar Creek Road. These accesses are intended to separate truck traffic from employee vehicle movements and improve overall site functionality. The development also includes 33 employee parking spaces along with truck terminal facilities, consisting of approximately 233 trailer parking spaces and 39 tractor parking spaces. Stormwater management facility is proposed to the south of the proposed warehouse, adjacent to an existing wetland feature, and is designed to also function as a physical buffer between the development and the natural heritage features. The environmental setbacks have been incorporated into the site design, including 30-meter setback from wetlands, a 10-meter setback from woodlands, and a minimum 14-meter setback from Highway 401. This slide shows the conceptual site plan to help illustrate how the proposed development is laid out on the property. The proposed warehouse building is located along the Cedar Creek frontage and is oriented toward the road with truck and trailer parking areas located to the rear of the building. The 2 full movement driveway axes are shown along the Cedar Creek Road, 1 on each side of the building. And these are intended to separate truck traffic from employee and visitor vehicles. The majority of the truck terminal facilities, including the trailer and tractor parking, are located behind the building and are set back from both Cedar Creek Road frontage and the natural heritage features. And the stormwater management facility is shown to the south of the building, adjacent to the wetland. You can also see the environmental setbacks incorporated into the site design. So can you go back 1 slide? Thank you. You can also see the environmental setbacks incorporated into the site design, including the 30-meter wetland setback and the 10-meter woodland setback, which reflect the findings of the environmental impacts study. The property is currently zoned Z1 agriculture under the township zoning bylaw, And that zoning permits agricultural uses, one single detached dwelling, but it does not permit industrial, warehousing, or transportation related uses. And so to facilitate the proposed warehouse and the truck terminal development, the applicant is seeking to rezone the eastern portion of the lands to the site-specific Z11 industrial zone. This portion of the property corresponds with that employment designation that I was speaking. In addition, a site-specific amendment is proposed for the remaining Z1 agricultural lands that would prohibit the establishment of single detached dwelling. This is intended to address land use compatibility between the proposed industrial development and the balance of the site. As part of the ongoing review, staff are also evaluating whether lands containing natural heritage features are appropriately zoned. This includes consideration of whether open space or environmental protection zone may be more appropriate to reflect their long-term functions and constraints. These matters will be reviewed further and reported back to council as part of the future recommendation. Notice of the application, the date of tonight's public meeting was circulated to property owners within 120 meters of the subject property in accordance with the requirements of the planning act. Notification sign was also posted along the frontage of the property on Seacliff Road to advise the public of the application and of the public meeting. At this time, staff have not received any written comments from members of the public. And any comments that may be received at tonight's public meeting or following this meeting and leading up to a future decision meeting will be reviewed and addressed through a future staff recommendation report to council. This slide provides a summary of the comments received to date from internal departments and external agencies in the circulation process. Starting with the township engineering through RJ Burnside, comments were provided identifying the need for additional technical refinement related to servicing, stormwater management, groundwater, and natural heritage protection. These matters are anticipated to be addressed through subsequent technical submissions and approvals as the application progresses. Comments were also received from the Grand River Conservation Authority. At this time, the GRC has advised that they are not in a position to support the zoning amendment, pending the resolution of outstanding water resource, wetland delineation, stormwater management, and ecological matters. These items are expected to be addressed through further study and refinement of the proposal. The Six Nations of the Grand River has advised that they do not object to the proposal in principle. However, they have requested enhanced environmental protection, buffering, and restoration measures will be considered as part of the ongoing review. And the Waterloo Catholic District School Board has indicated that they have no comments or concerns with respect to the application, noting only that the education development charges are to be collected prior to the issuance of building permits. Finally, the building department has advised that building permits, servicing approvals, development charges, and applicable regulatory clearances will be required at future stages of the approval process. Canada Post, the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks, Grandbridge Energy, and the Township Fire Department have all confirmed that they have no objections to the application at this time. And any additional comments that may be received following tonight's public meeting will be reviewed by staff and addressed as part of the future recommendation report that will be brought back in front of council. At this time, staff are not recommending that council make a decision on the merits of the zoning bylaw amendment. Instead, staff are recommending that all comments and correspondence received from members of the public and government agencies through the consultation process be returned to staff for further review and consideration as part of the future report to council on the disposition. In preparing a future recommendation report, staff will be considering a number of key matters. These include all comments received through the consultation process and whether revisions to the proposal or the proposed zoning provisions are warranted. Staff will also be assessing conformity with provincial interests and the regional and township official plans, including the employment area policies that apply to the subject lands. Additional considerations will include land use compatibility with surrounding residential, agricultural, and environmental uses, the suitability of the proposed zoning classifications and site-specific zoning standards, traffic access, circulation, and impacts on the surrounding road network. Staff will also continue to review servicing feasibility, stormwater management, and groundwater protection measures, as well as the protection and long-term management of the natural heritage features on the site. Finally, staff will consider the appropriateness of implementation tools to ensure that key technical matters are satisfactorily addressed before development proceeds. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Michael. Jillian Smith. Jillian, would you like to speak?
Good evening. My name is Jillian Smith and I am the agent, actually on behalf of the owner and applicant, which is Royal Truck and Trailer. Thank you, Michael, for your presentation. I have a very similar presentation. In an effort to avoid redundancies, I'm going to probably skip over a lot of it.
Thank you.
Save us some time. As I had noted, Royal Trek is the owner and applicant, and they are looking to establish a logistics facility on a portion of the site. That portion is the eastern half, which is designated a regional employment area. The western half, which is the agricultural and environmental area, will be conserved, and that is not part of our application. Sorry, coming up a bit of a cold. I just want to show a broader figure of the context for your consideration. As you can see, the site is actually on the edge of the employment area. It's right beside an existing facility, which is Unilock. And then on the other side is where we get into mostly environmental features and then the agricultural land use designations. The property does back onto the Highway 401. And it is just west of the interchange with Cedar Creek. So it does provide really great access to the 401 for distribution purposes. I guess this is just a better close-up image that you can see the aerial. So really the part that is designated agricultural is mostly an environmental use at the moment. It consists of woodlot and then a provincially significant wetland. And then the area that we're proposing to redevelop is the area that's sort of outside of the blue, just adjacent to the existing built up industrial area. I can't recall if Michael touched on this, but this is great because it shows the setbacks that we're proposing. So it has a 30-meter setback to the wetland, which is the area in blue, and then has a 10-meter setback to the woodland feature. The stormwater management facility will encroach very slightly into the woodlot, but as part of our EIS, the recommendations have included restoration plantings, so that will come forward with a site plan application to help mitigate any impacts that might have. These are some renderings of the facility that's being proposed. There will be two accesses, one for employees, one for transport. We did a TIS as part of this application, and the TIS concluded that there are no major impacts, but it is recommending 2 left turn lanes into the site at both entrances, just for reference. In terms of the supporting studies, we did a few. The environmental impact study that I mentioned looked at the development in terms of its encroachment into the wetland and woodlot. As though there's no development within those environmental lands, there are no negative impacts. As I had noted, there are some required buffers that will be incorporated as part of the restoration, as part of the stormwater management plan. The transportation impact study concluded that there would be minimal impacts related to traffic. However, there are those 2 left turn lanes that are being proposed. An archaeological assessment was completed. That was a stage 1 and 2. And that was only completed for the developed portion of the site. So the agricultural area was not assessed. It did recommend a stage 3 just because there were some additional site works that needed to be done that were inconclusive at the time. And then the weather turned and they were not able to get back up there. So we did have to recommend a stage 3. So in the spring that will be undertaken. In terms of the hydrogeological and geotechnical, those were completed to inform the civil reports. And the functional servicing and stormwater management reports conclude the site will be on private water and sanitary services. A fire reservoir will be included as well. And then there will be an on-site stormwater management fund that we have talked about. The specific design details of those services will be determined for a site plan application, so they're very preliminary at the moment, but it will be on private servicing. Overall, the conclusion of the technical studies is that they are supportive of the development, and there are no outstanding constraints at this time. We can get a little bit into the land use policies that are applicable. So we do have the PPS, which says that settlement areas are to be the focus for growth and development. Municipalities are to protect employment areas that are located in proximity to major goods movements, facilities, and corridors.
and that employment uses benefit from being located near those. That would include the Highway 401. Employment areas are to support economic development and competitiveness and provide a range of employment uses. It also states that natural features are to be protected and prime agricultural areas are to be designated and protected for the long term. So the site is obviously in a rural employment area, so it does comply with the provincial policy statement. It is in good access to the Highway 401 with the interchange at Cedar Creek just down the road there. The natural features will be protected and the agricultural lands will also be protected. So it is consistent with the yes. In terms of the ROP, the ROP does identify the site as being regional employment area. And it does identify the west as being the agricultural and environmental area. It will be developed in accordance with those policies, so it does conform to the ROP. The same can be said for the North Dumfries official plan. I'm not going to get into the specifics of it because it's very much the same, but it will be developed in accordance with those policies. So it does conform to the township official plan. The proposal, however, it is not consistent with the zoning bylaw. It is zoned Z1, which is for agriculture. And so we're really just bringing this amendment forward to bring the zoning into conformity with the official plans. All other regulations will be met by the development. And we will be moving forward with rezoning the environmental and those buffers to open space as recommended by staff in the GRCA. So in summary, the proposal is consistent with the policies. It's appropriate for the location and the use. The agricultural and environmental features will be conserved. And we will introduce buffers to help mitigate any concerns. And there will be no impact to the agricultural condition of the lands.
Thank you, Jim. Jim, Reinhardt?
No comment.
No comment, okay, Jim, thanks. Frank Stewardessa?
And no comment as well, not a good thing.
Anyone else wish to comment on this application? Go ahead, please come forward.
It's my concern that they only want to put in 2 left turn lanes going into the building. I believe there should be another lane westbound going back to the highway, because that is going to slow traffic down a lot. Because currently already when trucks from Cooner get onto the road there, quite often they'll go onto the road before they should, and it backs everything up. So I think if they have a big terminal like that, it's gonna make it worse. And I also have concern about the lighting in the area. I think it's gonna affect our area where I live now currently.
Okay, thank you, and Michael's waiting away. Oh, so what's your name?
Rob Drost.
Rob
Drost.
Drost. Okay, thank you, Rob. Any other members wish to speak on this? Seeing none, councilors, Councilwoman.
Madam Mayor, my question is through you to staff. When I look at the overhead map, I can see that Unilock next door is set back nicely from the road and it has some landscaping in front. And it looks like this building is proposed just to be right up against the road. I sort of consider this area to be the gateway into North Dumfries, and I know we haven't put a lot of effort into the 288 interchange area, but I'm disappointed to see this project just come forward in such a basic kind of way. I was hoping that there would be some thought towards landscaping to some sort of appeal from the road, to sort of improve the look of that whole strip coming into air. So I'm just wondering, is there anything that staff can propose or look at that could set the building back from the road, similar to what Unilock has, to make it look more attractive, maybe to incorporate some of that wetland feature into the entrance to the building? I don't know. I'm just looking at it. It's just a pretty basic kind of design with a lot of trailer parking, and it doesn't really do much to enhance the overall feel of that industrial area.
Michael.
Through you, Councilwoman. Absolutely, that's something that we can bring up as part of our comments back to your first submission. Ways that we can beautify the industrial development so that it's not just a massive building at the forefront of Cedar Creek with parking in the back. There's ways that we can improve that. they've done well with, site functionality, but how can we incorporate landscaping to better improve that experience on the site, especially along the Cedar Creek frontage? That's certainly something that staff can bring back to the applicant and we can have consideration for.
Thank you. Anybody else? Council Williams.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to staff. When I'm looking at the drawing, I see the stormwater management pond right beside the wet area. And I was just wondering what kind of environmental considerations need to be taken into, need to be thought about, just to ensure that none of this leaks into a sensitive environment.
That's certainly a consideration as well as we review this proposal. I think the idea here was that stormwater management facility would actually be a buffer between the wetland and the parking area, and it would actually help to control some of that dispersion of some of those runoffs to the wetland feature. But certainly through our engineering reviews, we're going to be reviewing that, and through our environmental impact study on ways that we're mitigating those impacts to those wetland features. So it's in consideration as part of our review, but I'll bring it back as well. We'll make sure that we look at that more closely.
CEO McNeely.
So Madam Mayor, through you to Councillor Williams, just to add to Mr. Campos' statement, because this is a provincially significant wetland, we actually have a higher order of treatment that's required to comply with provincial standards and regulations. So we're not only looking at quantity, capturing surface runoff, recognizing the significant increase in impervious surface, both building and parking lot, but also the composition of that runoff looks like. And as you can appreciate, there is always the concern about grit and salts as some byproducts of surface runoff coming through parking lot areas. And so now it'll be looking at perhaps pre-treatment through grit separators or similar infrastructure before the water gets to the storm pond. And then the nature and the design of the storm pond itself in terms of some of the vegetative communities that may be incorporated into the storm pond to assist in picking up some of those impurities before it potentially commingles with the adjacent wetland. So Burnside has an ecological division that looks at both from an ecology perspective, but also a water resource stormwater perspective. And it's the blending of those disciplines that will inform ultimately at the site plan stage, those wetland parameters. At the zoning stage, we have to be confident that the magnitude of development, the setbacks from the features can be properly accounted for. And so part of that is functionally is enough land set aside for the storm pond, and is the storm pond in the right location to support the emerging urban use.
Madam Mayor, so just following up on what Councilman was talking about, if this is a provincially sensitive wetland, is there concern over lighting and how that might affect wildlife and birds and that sort of thing? I was wondering, I saw that comment earlier from Six Nations, and now it's in my mind. I'm just wondering, is there a concern here with glass and lighting, and is something that we need to turn our minds to?
CEO McNeely.
There's two different components there. One would be the exterior lighting. So parking, illumination of the travel corridors, parking areas, including staff parking areas. So typically at the site plan stage, we require photometric analysis, and the principle is dark sky. So it has two aspects. One is cast of light upwards, but also directional lighting to the ground, and obviously trying to minimize the trespass of light beyond where we're trying to illuminate for safety purposes. With respect to the building itself, there actually isn't a lot of glazing on the building because of the nature of the activity being a logistics terminal comprised of stock type facilities, warehousing, but where there is glassing is meant partly to accentuate some architectural design elements, partially to incorporate opportunities to bring natural lighting into some of the interior spaces, and specifically the office areas, to a lesser extent in the warehouse component. So the amount of lighting caused by the glazing would be relatively small. But generally speaking, when we're looking at glazing and we're worried about bird or bird kill, we're typically talking about higher order buildings, like you would see like in apartment style buildings or office towers. Generally, at this lower scale, it's not as much of a concern.
Thank you, Sam. Councilor Lehman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to comment on what CEO said, because my concern, I guess, is when I think about that salt dome that the ministry put up, and that light that they have there, you can see for hundreds of miles around. So I'm just wondering, is there anything we can do to make sure that they actually have dark sky, because the ministry didn't seem to care about it.
So Madam Mayor, through you to Councilor Rowland. Unfortunately, the province invoked their jurisdiction and that development, they exempted themselves from local site plan control. And what you see built there is what is built there. This property and redevelopment of this site is subject to the township site plan control requirements. And part of that element is the lighting. That is not a zoning issue, a site plan issue, but it is our past practice to require photometrics analysis and the appropriate composition of lighting, balancing the needs of both safety for those corridors and parking areas against adjacent sensitive uses, which can include sensitive uses like natural systems, could be the adjacent roadway system, because we don't want to cast glare onto the adjacent road network. Not applicable in this situation, but in some other types of proposal, perhaps residential uses. So this is not the MTO yard proposal.
Any other questions, Councilor? Can I have the motion, please, Councilor Rowland?
Moved by myself, sent by Councilman Tilly, that the report number 05/2026 be received, and all comments and correspondence received from the consultation process be returned to staff for further consideration and future report to council on the discussion of this matter.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. 8.1.3, report number PD 07/2026, proposed zoning bylaw amendment for 260 Wading Drive, file number ZC-06/2026. Notice has been given in accordance with the Planning Act. The clerk will keep a record of all persons who provide comments on this application and those who register with the clerk's department to request a notice of decision. Those individuals will be notified of the decision or the convening of future meetings on this application. There's a sign sheet at the back table of the meeting room to complete for those who wish for future notice related to this file. Brock Linklater, Senior Planner, will present this application. Brock, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Following presentation has been prepared to share the details regarding the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, DC 25 for the property located at 260 Wading Drive in North Dumfries. No decision will be made on the merits of the application at this meeting. The purpose of tonight's presentation and public meeting is to introduce the proposal, summarize the materials submitted today, and solicit comments for staff's consideration in a future report on the merits of this application. The subject property is located on the north side of Wading Drive within the Highway 401 Regional Road 97 employment area. Property is approximately 0.52 hectares with 30.48 meters of frontage on Wading Drive. It currently contains a 1,125 square meter single-story warehouse building with an office mezzanine. The site is currently zoned Z11 industrial in the township zoning bylaw, and in the township's official plan, the property is located within the Highway 401 employment area as noted. It is also designated dry industrial. The applicant is proposing to convert the existing warehouse building to a commercial greenhouse use for the purpose of indoor cannabis cultivation. Proposals for indoor cultivation within the existing building with no major external changes anticipated. The existing driveway access and parking arrangement are expected to remain. And as noted, no processing, manufacturing, or retail is proposed to occur on site. Once cultivated, the product will be transported elsewhere for processing and distribution. As a commercial greenhouse use is not permitted as of right in the Z11 industrial zone, the application proposes a site-specific zoning exemption to permit the use on this property. This slide shows the existing building that would contain the proposed indoor cultivation use, along with an east-facing elevation drawing of the building. At this stage, the application is focused on permitting the use within the existing structure rather than a redesign of the site. As noted, the intent is indoor cultivation with no on-site processing, manufacturing, or retail intended. This slide illustrates the site plan, including the location of the existing building relative to William Drive and the site's current circulation and parking arrangement. For council's awareness, the application has submitted a range of supporting materials and studies as part of this application, including among others, planning justification report, site plans, floor plans, transportation impact study, emission assessment, as well as others. These are currently under review by staff and RJ Burnside, the township's peer reviewer. Detailed comments will be provided in a future report to council. Looking at relevant planning policy considerations with this proposal, the comprehensive planning statement 2024 includes policies emphasizing the planning authorities shall plan for, protect, and preserve employment areas, and protect employment areas near major good and movement corridors such as Highway 401. At the regional level, the subject lands are within the Highway 401 employment area designation, which is intended to meet a density target of 25 jobs per hectare. At the township's level, the official plan policies for dry industrial also speak to allowing light industrial uses on private servicing. As part of staff's review of this zoning bylaw amendment application and through a future site plan control application, existing private servicing arrangements and supporting technical reports will be reviewed to confirm that they are adequate to accommodate proposed commercial greenhouse use. As of the time of preparing PD report number 7, 2026 for this meeting agenda, there has been no public correspondence received from any members of the public. Any correspondence received following this meeting will be circulated to council and reviewed by staff as part of the future report to council on the merits of this application. This application has been circulated to township departments and external agencies for review. At the time of preparing the report, agencies, departments noting no objections included the Township's Engineering and Public Works Department, Waterloo Catholic District School Board, Six Nations of the Grand River Elected Council, and Canada Post. In terms of comments received to date, the fire department has noted that they have no objection to the ZBA in principle, with a simple recommendation to consider relocating the fire department connection off the reservoir to a suitable accessible location to support safe access to the on-site water supply in the event of a fire. This will be looked at during the site plan control stage. Region of Waterloo has no objections to the ZBA to the zoning bylaw amendment, and that any future development would be subject to the region's development charge bylaw. And lastly, Grandbridge Energy has noted that they also have no objection, but any service changes, upgrades, relocations, easement, and service agreements would be at the owner and applicant's expense. Staff are also expecting technical review from RJ Burnside and Associates as noted on the various supporting technical documents shortly. Staff's recommendation at this time is that PD report number 7, 2026 be received, and that all comments and correspondence received through this consultation process be returned to staff for further consideration as part of the future report to council on the disposition of this matter. In preparing the future recommendation report, staff will be considering matters including all comments received through the consultation process, detailed review of the supporting technical studies submitted in support of the application, conformity with the PPS and the official plan, whether the amendment maintains the general intent of the zoning bylaw, and whether there will be any impacts from the proposed use on surrounding properties. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the applicant want to make a statement? I believe Jillian Smith is here. Hello, Jillian. Would you like to speak on this?
I would.
You're a busy beaver.
It's to see you again.
Me too. I have a holiday on.
Okay. Thanks again to staff for a very comprehensive presentation. I do not want to be redundant here, so I'm going to skip through this. But there are a few things I just want to touch on. I think the first thing is that the owner and applicant is known as Starbuck Transportation. They formerly operated a warehouse on the site, which is the existing building, and they are just converting the interior of that space to indoor cannabis grow up. I the same thing. Yes, so this is showing the interior layout of the space. The proposal is actually to have 4 separate growers inside the building. So the interior will be converted into 4 growing rooms and these 2 storage rooms and then an office. I just want to make that distinction because this isn't just one, I guess, license. There will be 4 licenses operating under this facility with a minimum of 4 individuals responsible for growing. Another important point I want to touch on is their regulatory framework. So typically we deal with the PPS and the region official plan and the township official plan. In this case, we have federal legislation that's coming into play. This is the Cannabis Act, and it came to be in 2018. Under the Cannabis Act, they also have regulations, and those regulations sort of guide how cannabis is grown and cultivated and dealt with. So under the Cannabis Act, you are required to get a license for anything that you're doing in terms of growing or producing. If you're distributing, selling, anything to do with cannabis. And Health Canada would be the licensing authority in this case. And so each of the 4 growers have a license with Health Canada. And I believe those have been provided as part of this application. In addition to the Cannabis Act and regulations, the regulations set out specific parameters for site design, and that can relate to security and surveillance, and then obviously things related to emissions. So the commercial greenhouse will have security measures in place. This includes surveillance monitoring on the outside as well as the interior. Growing rooms will have adequate air filtration, and no odors are expected to penetrate surrounding land uses outside of the facility. To that effect, we did several supporting studies. And one of those supporting studies was an emissions assessment that was required by staff. So the facility will have a climate control system, and that climate control system will regulate the growth parameters inside the facility. Because this is an interior enclosed space, there will be no exhaust system that is releasing odors outside. This is all self-contained, and the interior air filtration system will deal with all of those. So therefore, the assessment concludes that there will be no significant emissions from the facility. We also did a servicing report, stormwater management report, both of which are very straightforward. There is no site alteration or change to the existing services. So there's no change, and the studies support the proposal. We also did a traffic study. There is no significant traffic that is expected to be generated from this facility, and therefore there are no concerns on that. So I'm just going to jump straight to the summary. This proposal is supported by the PPS as well as the region official plan and the township official plan. The only inconsistency here comes down to zoning, and we're just looking at a site-specific zoning amendment that will permit a greenhouse use and allow for the facility to be operated as suggested. We are meeting the federal requirements, and therefore we believe that this facility is appropriate.
Thank you. Sharon Hepburn is online. I just answered Zoom. Any questions? Is there any member of the public that wishes to speak on this? Seeing none, councillors. Seeing none. Yes, I can have the motion, please, Councillor Williams. Nope, I'm sorry, it's Councillor Taylor.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Williams, that PD report number 07/26 be received. And that all comments and correspondence received through the consultation process be returned to staff for further consideration of future report to council on the disposition of this matter.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Eight point one point four. Report number PD 08/2026, proposed official amendment file number OP 03/25, the proposed zoning bylaw amendment file number ZC 0425 for 141 and 143 to 143 Northumberland Street and 148 Newfoundland Street. Notice has been given in accordance with the Planning Act. The clerk has kept a record of all persons who provided comments on this application and those who register with the clerk's department to request a notice of decision. These individuals will be notified of the decision or the convening of future meetings on this application. There's a sign-in sheet at the table at the back of the meeting room to complete for those who wish future notice related to this file. Brock Lakeland, Senior Planner, will present this application. Brock, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Following presentation has been prepared to share the details regarding proposed official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment applications that is affecting 141 to 143 Northumberland Street and 148 Northumberland Street. File numbers are OP 0325 and ZC 0425. Similar to the last presentation, no decision will be made on the merits of the application at this meeting, and the purpose of tonight's presentation is to introduce the proposal, summarize the materials submitted to date, and solicit comments for staff's consideration in the report to council on the merits of this application. Subject lands consist of 2 adjacent lots within the air urban area fronting onto Northumberland Street, 141 to 143 Northumberland Street and 148 Northumberland Street. These properties are located east of the Myth River and south of the railway corridor in urban area. For 141 and 143 Northumberland Street, the lot is approximately 5,270.5 square meters in area with 60 meters of frontage onto Northumberland Street. Existing buildings include warehouse, self-storage style uses, and a brewery restaurant. Vehicular access to this property is provided from English Street. For 148 Northumberland Street, the lot area is approximately 0.43 hectares with 30 meters of frontage. Existing buildings include a car repair shop, self-storage, and gym/fitness related uses. Main vehicular access to this property is provided from Northumberland Street with a secondary access point located on Butte Street. Surrounding land uses from these properties include a mix of employment, service commercial, and residential uses. From an official plan perspective, the lands are designated general industrial within the air urban area. The proposed official plan amendment would add a site-specific policy area to permit standalone retail uses on the subject lands. And additionally, staff are also evaluating whether other complementary employment or service-oriented uses may also be appropriate as part of our continued review. From a zoning perspective, the lands are zoned Z9 industrial in the township zoning bylaw currently. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment would introduce a site-specific exemption to permit retail uses within the existing buildings, with the same note that additional complementary uses are also being considered through staff's continued review. This slide provides photos of the properties as viewed from the street. The intent here is to simply show the existing context and existing built form on each lot. On the left of this slide, you can see photos of the property at 141 to 143 Northumberland, with views from Northumberland and English streets. On the right, you can see photos of the property at 148 Northumberland, with the top photo representing the view from Northumberland Street, and the photo on the bottom right showing a view from the property of some of the existing unit frontages facing the parking lot. At this stage, the applications are focused on introducing the additional land use permissions within these existing buildings to enable additional tenanting opportunities, rather than proposing new construction or changing the overall site layout for circulation. This slide includes existing condition plans for both properties, alongside photos as well, with the yellow symbols on the existing condition plans, simply representing the approximate location of where the associated photos were taken from. Moving on. As noted, the applicant submitted applications for an official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment to introduce site-specific permissions to permit standalone retail uses. In addition to the existing industrial and service commercial uses, the applicant's stated intent is to retain the existing industrial and service commercial operations, while also enabling additional retail tenanting. As part of staff's ongoing review, we are considering additional complementary employment uses. Given their location, the property's location within the air urban area, and the goal of ensuring that the zoning framework reflects the site's long-term function and evolving context. The official plan amendment specifically is being requested to introduce a site-specific policy permitting the standalone retail uses on the subject lands, in addition to the existing permitted uses within the general industrial designation. The implementing OPA would amend the designation to general industrial with special policy area, with the final details of any site-specific policy to be informed through staff's continued policy review. The zoning bylaw amendment proposes to introduce a site-specific exemption as well, permitting retail uses as an additional use within the existing Z9 industrial zoning framework, with the potential for additional complementary uses subject to continued staff review. The intent here is that the retail uses and any additional complementary uses would operate within existing buildings under the underlying Z9 zoning permissions. Looking at some planning policies that are relevant to the proposal, at the provincial level, the PPS directs growth and development to settlement areas and supports land use patterns to include a mix of uses and optimize existing and planned infrastructure. The regional official plan directs the majority of growth and employment growth to urban areas, including the township's urban area. And at the township level, our township official plan policies include direction for development in the urban area to contribute to complete communities and provide an appropriate mix of uses, as well as policies encouraging commercial/retail facilities to serve the needs of township residents. These policies will be part of the broader planning analysis included in the future recommendation report, including how retail permissions may relate to the intent and function of the general industrial designation and the Z9 zoning classification. Notice of the application and the public meeting were circulated to property owners within 120 meters of both properties involved in the subject lands, and notice signs were posted along the Northumberland Street frontage of both properties, as well as a sign along the Ingle Street frontage for 141 to 143 Northumberland Street. As of the date of preparing the report for tonight's public meeting agenda, staff have not received any public comments on these applications. Any correspondence received following tonight's meeting will be circulated to council and reviewed and included as part of the future report to council on the merits of the applications. Looking at agency and departmental input received today, several agencies have indicated that they have no comments or objections, including the Engineering and Public Works Department, the RCA, Waterloo Catholic District School Board, and Canada Post. In terms of comments that have been received, the Township's Fire Department does not have objection to the OPA and ZBA stage. They do note that fire route access and life safety matters may need to be addressed for future approvals as needed. The building department provided advisory comments regarding building code compliance and applicable permits that may be required for tenant fit ups or building changes. The region of Waterloo noted that future development will be subject to the region's development charter bylaw. And Cranbridge Energy has noted that there be no objections and that any service changes, upgrades, relocations would be at the owner and applicant's expense and addressed through later processes if necessary. Staff will continue reviewing all technical submissions and comments received as the file progresses. Staff's recommendation is that PD report number 8 be received and that all comments and correspondence received through the consultation process be returned to staff for further consideration in the future report to council regarding these applications. As part of that future report, staff will be considering items including comments received through this consultation period, detailed review of the supporting materials provided, potential impacts of introducing the complete retail use or complementary uses to surrounding properties, and whether permitting standalone retail uses and any complementary employment or service-oriented uses are appropriate given the context of the general industrial designation in Z9 zoning. Additionally, following tonight's public meeting, staff will continue the review of the application, including this in-depth consideration of whether additional complementary employment or service-oriented uses will be appropriate to include as part of the site-specific permissions. If through that continued review it is determined that additional complementary usage should be considered, the township will be sure to promptly update the application details on the township's current planning application webpage in advance of the file returning to council for future recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. So, if the applicant wishes to make any comments? Seeing none,
Sorry.
I beg your pardon? Oh, David, did you want to speak?
Sure. Yeah, my name is Dave Galbraith. I am the planning consultant retained by Woodhouse Group for both of these projects here. I really don't have a presentation this evening. Great job by staff covering the overview of the application. Essentially, Woodhouse is looking to increase the permissions on the site to allow for complementary retail permissions on the site. We look forward to the opportunity to engage with staff through the process to refine the implementing official plan amendment and zone change application. But I am here for any questions you might have this evening if you have any. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilors, any, public, any questions? Seeing none, council? Council Bowman.
Madam Mayor, just for clarification, I'm wondering, staff, could you clarify for me, is there a consideration for fast food services, like, take-out restaurant type things, or is it just strictly retail?
Staff, go ahead.
Madam Mayor, through the council, given the site, it's not really conducive to drive-through or type operations. Generally speaking, you require a significant amount of land to accommodate the queuing of vehicles. The existing built form and the configuration of the respective properties, both on the east and west sides of Northumberland, are not conducive to that. We also have to be a little bit concerned about the proximity of the driveways to the CPKC rail corridor. I know when we looked at the development on the north side of Northumberland Street, certainly that type of activity was not contemplated in zoning for the very reasons I just talked about.
Thank you. Any other questions, councilors? I'm cracking to know what kind of retail, but I won't ask. Councilor Williams, please. Love to shop in town.
Moved by myself, second by Councilor Williman, that the report number 08-2026 be received. And that all comments and correspondence received through the consultation process be returned to staff for further consideration in a future report to council on the disposition of this matter.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Public meeting none, delegation petition Air Affairs Band regarding the annual update to council as required in the memorandum of understanding. Welcome.
Good evening, council. My name is Irene Avey, and I'm the president of the Air Affairs Band. We would like to thank North Dumfries Council for your continued support. We have had a good year. Our junior band is continuing under the direction of Rochelle Hooker and mentored by senior band members. The program is made possible in part through the support provided by North Dumfries Council. We offer this free program for new instrumentalists of any age, including free music books, free instrument rentals when our inventory permits. Performing as hot air, the band's 10-piece group, music was provided free of charge for the Mayor's Levee, Knox Church Anniversary Celebration, and the Air Cemetery Decoration Day. Locally, the Air Affairs Band performed 2 Scottish-themed concerts in January, particularly for former Air and North Dumfries residents who live at Telford Place and Winston Park in Kitchener. There were 4 free public concerts at the Watson Pond Pavilion on the first Wednesday of the month beginning in June. In November, the band hosted a remembering concert at Knox Church to commemorate the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II. It was free to attend. Local parades include the Air Remembrance Day service and the Air Santa Claus Parade, no charge. The band performs concerts and parades outside of the township to earn funding for our directors, music, instruments, uniforms, and repairs. There is no membership fee to belong to the Air Affairs Band. Uniforms are provided, and instruments are also provided free when they are in our inventory. In 2025, our uniform shirts were replaced, and the old-fashioned peak hats were swapped out for ball caps. We partnered with the Air Community Theatre to provide funding to purchase new chairs for the Air Community Center Hall. It's due to the funds that we earned and support from the councils of North Dumfries and Brant County that we strive to bring our communities quality performances, learning opportunities, and a measure of local pride. Thank you again for your continued support. Any
Thank you.
questions? Sorry.
Thank you for all you do. It's amazing. Any questions or comments? Besides, well done. Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can I have the motion, please, Councilor Tilly?
Moved by myself, second by Councilor Williams, that the delegation from the Air Affairs Band regarding the annual update to council be received with that.
All those in favor? Carry, and thank you, folks. Okay, we're on 10.2 consent agenda. Anything on the consent agenda? I'm sorry, Amanda Natziger, regarding backyard chickens. Amanda, please.
Those chairs aren't as comfortable as they seem to be sitting for that long. Madam Mayor, Council, thank you for letting me speak today. I just have a pretty short presentation. All right, let me see if I can put this up here. Okay, so there is a growing interest all over Ontario to access fresh, healthy, organic, sustainable, and affordable food. And I'm passionate about that self-reliant lifestyle. Backyard chickens can play a critical role in aiding in food security by providing their own supply of fresh eggs, reducing dependency on store-bought eggs, mitigating the impact of fluctuating food prices, especially during this economic uncertain time. Supporting backyard chickens is a step at reducing our carbon footprint. By opting for local sources of fresh eggs, we cut down on emissions associated with transport. Keeping chickens also can lead to a significant reduction in food waste. Chickens help in recycling food scraps that would otherwise end up in landfills. Just in regards to sustainability, if you would have seen Air News last week, 8.7 million visits in Ontario alone have happened in food banks. And also a huge percentage in food bank usage in the Waterloo region. I am part of some of the wonderful ladies who help 70 to 100 people in Air every month through It Takes a Village. And I've spoken to some of those participants in our program, and they said this would be a good way for them to be able to create some food security for themselves by being able to secure their own chickens. Education opportunities abound for families and children through the experience of raising chickens. It's an excellent way to teach future generations about agriculture. Sorry. What's happening? Okay, there we go. It just gives them a deep understanding about nature and food production. I created a survey for the residents of North Dumfries on some of our local Facebook groups. And I did ask them why they didn't participate in the 2018 pilot program. Some of that feedback included the $500 application fee, as well as the additional $500 annually was just not feasible during a time of job loss and uncertainty, as we just were merging right into COVID. Over 50% of people who completed the survey were unaware of the pilot program, and residents could not participate because of their lot sizes. Therefore, they couldn't comply with any of the rules that was set up by bylaw, or they lived on a rental property, so chickens were not even permitted. So generally, the feedback I've received from the survey and in the local Facebook groups has been positive. But I did talk to Mr. Justin Harris in bylaw, and we did talk about some of the possible problems that he had while he worked at Kitchener bylaw. So some of those things we talked about were the sound of roosters, the owners not banding or securing their chickens, and chickens at large, they could not be found where they belonged. As well as rodents and pests getting into chicken feed. But I do think with some consultation, we could definitely make a robust program in North Dumfries. So my proposal, this is not an exhaustive list, just a few things I thought were important for people to know about. A maximum of 4 chickens. Those with half acre or more could have a maximum of 6 to 8 chickens. No roosters. That the application cost could be set at a more affordable level to be in line with our neighboring communities. Kitchener being $56.24 annually, Waterloo being $27.86 annually, and Brant County being $150 as a one-time application fee. No home slaughter of chickens allowed. The rental properties would be able to have chickens if there was permission from their homeowner. Chickens must be contained on the property at all times. Inspection of the property and coop must happen to ensure proper setbacks and structure. The chicken coop not allowed in the front yard of your property, and the chicken coop, the same as Kitchener bylaw, be 1.2 meters from the rear lot line and 2.5 meters from the side lot line. The coop must be deep cleaned 2 to 3 times a year and disinfected. And the coop must be clean and odor-free. The floors must be lined with shavings, straw or other appropriate materials to absorb manure and facilitate cleaning. Feed must be stored in rodent-proof containers, and the current chicken owner is grandfathered into this proposed bylaw. Because there is chickens in town, people don't realize that, a lot of people didn't actually even realize that there was a current bylaw, just because we do live in a farming community, so they were very surprised. So, in conclusion, it appears that not only myself, but numerous residents of North Dumfries feel that adding a backyard chicken bylaw would be beneficial to the community. With the suggestions that I've discussed during this presentation, I'm hoping that council will reconsider allowing backyard hens in our community. With this change, we can embrace sustainable living, educational opportunities for children and adults, as well as the companionships that chickens would provide, and the ability to provide food for ourselves during economic uncertainty. My daughter is here and she just wants to say a couple words for me. Oh, I didn't introduce myself, but sorry.
Thank you so much, Amanda.
Hello, my name is Ina Natsiger. I am 9 years old and in grade 4 at Pottsville Christian School. I came here today with my mom to talk about how important and loved our chickens are in our family. Their names are Copper, Cece, Frida, Wayne, and Paulina. My sister, my family, I have one brother and 2 sisters, have raised their chickens since they were 1 day old. Now they are 7 years old. Some of my responsibilities in caring for our chickens include collecting eggs that we often give to our neighbors, making sure they have fresh water and food, and closing the coop at night so they're safe from predators. When my mom told me that we would have to get rid of our chickens, I was very sad. My family loves our chickens as pets. Since they are old in chicken years, if they had to go to another flock, they would probably be picked on and die. They have never lived with a rooster, so this could also stress them out. Our neighbor Donna Bell would also lose her job because when we go away, she looks after them for us. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. I encourage you to consider allowing chickens in our village and township and hopefully let me keep mine.
How old is a chicken if they're too old? How old in comparison to yours?
I'm not sure, but I think the general age of chickens is 4 years old and ours are 7, so they look beyond their years.
Wow. Well done, dear. Okay, any questions or comments or? There's 2 recommendations and Councilor Roman, you have the motion. Okay, I'll Councilor Roman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was just wondering if we could adopt something similar to what Wilmot has. Where I was looking on their website where they do permit 4 hens. They have a form people can fill out. There is inspections. So I was just wondering if something similar to what Wilmot does, it's also more of a rural community, could be something that we could look into.
Well, the second part of the motion is that staff look into it and be so directed. Councilor Roman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I grew up on a farm and we had chickens and we had a rooster and I still wake up at 5 a.m. now because of that stupid rooster. So I mean, there's an idyllic sense that, chickens are these wonderful animals. They're not that wonderful. But I did appreciate having fresh eggs and I made some money as a kid selling eggs. But I guess the real question I have is that, and staff maybe confirm this, I know there's a lot of people in town that have chickens. I know people in town, I just ignored the bylaw. If we have too onerous a bylaw, people are just going to ignore it. So really, what's the point of having a bylaw that no one's following? We're better off to do as Councilor Bloom said, let's find something that's reasonable that people can follow and that we can actually inspect, because having a bylaw that says no chickens isn't working because there's chickens all over town. So we might as well have staff prepare something a little more reasonable, I guess, and let's move forward with something.
Councilor Tilly.
Ditto.
Okay, so Councilor Roman.
Yeah, I recall the previous bylaw was like the $500, which didn't make a lot of sense in the context that we're talking about here, and that's why we struck it down. So yeah, I was just thinking now, looking around what other municipalities do, like I know Cambridge doesn't. But there's also an opportunity here to make life a little bit better for residents and kind of keep a better watch where I am.
Well, let's have the motion then, Councillor Overland.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, Councillor Sutton.
Joking aside, I did take Amanda's suggestion and take a look at the city kitchen. And it basically spells out a lot of stuff, and it's pretty exciting that, and if you look at Councilor Wong, if you look at, I think we should definitely let staff do it, so that's my.
Let's let staff do it. So the motion, please, Councillor Overland.
Moved by myself, so by Councilor Wilms, that delegation from Amanda and Matt Singer regarding backyard chickens be received and that staff be directed to prepare a report outlining options and analysis that could form a new backyard chicken bylaw for council's review and consideration.
All those in favor? That's good. And your daughter made my CEO smile. I haven't seen him smile that much in years. In years.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, we had a problem with roosters last week. Didn't I?
Roosters.
A couple weeks ago. Yeah, rooster complaints, yes.
You don't like it? You don't like it? I mean, you don't like it?
Okay.
I like Indians. I like eating chicken.
Request to be lifting from the consent agenda and separate consideration public speaking items. Commission, are there any items on the, that members of council would like to lift from the consent agenda? Councilor Rob.
12.2.1 D and E.
You're requiring? E is, what does it say? Well, okay. So D and E, we're going to, yeah, 12, D and E. Anybody else? All right, so I'm just going to start. We can do that. Yeah, Councilor Robinson, you have the motion, please ignore D and E.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Woolman, that the following reports as listed on the January 26th, 2026 consent agenda be received, and the recommendations contained herein be approved and acted upon. 12.1.1, report number CLK-01-2026-2025 annual attendance reporting for members of council. 12.1.2, report number FD-01-2026 fire department instant response summary, December 2025. And the following information items as listed on the January 26th, 2026 consent agenda be received. 12.2.1 communications, A, correspondence received from Ministry of Emergency Preparedness regarding the Emergency Management Modernization Act achieves royal assent. B, correspondence from Municipal Engineers Association regarding MEA elects new board of directors. C, correspondence from the municipality of Magnetawan regarding grant funding criteria for rural and northern municipalities. F, resolution received from the municipality of Huron Shores regarding rent protection for tenants. G, correspondence received from the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation, MPAC, regarding MPAC's municipal partners report. And 12.2.2 advisory committees, the Grand River Accessibility Advisory Committee meetings dated November 27, 2025, and the Grand River Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting minutes dated December 18, 2025.
All those in favor? Still, thank you. Okay. And now we want to talk about D and E. So, Councilor G.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So with regards to the Blue Bill creation, I wasn't entirely sure, and perhaps this is a question to council or to staff, what I know that there's a lot of work being done on the regional level with regards to water quality and quantity and looking forward into the future. I was wondering what role there was for North Dumfries and local municipalities to support efforts to protect our regional groundwater and to make sure we do have a sustainable
future in Waterloo region.
Will we recommend to staff that they look into this and come back with information? Or CEO McNoon, go ahead.
I can, Madam Mayor, if it's all right, I can provide a response
Go
to
right now. Yeah.
Councillor Wells. There are two parallel different processes. One is under the Source Protection Act, which is actually protecting groundwater resources or surface water intake locations that supply potable water. And that is a partnership between, in our local district, it is a partnership with the Grand River Conservation Authority, as well as the region of Waterloo through their water resources division. We feed into that as it relates to bringing standards or policies into our official plan that govern wellhead protection. In our case, wellhead protection, because we don't have surface water intake. Wellhead protection. Some of those wellheads are actually in adjacent municipalities, but there's zones of influence cross into North Dumfries. And then depending upon what the tea time interval is, the travel distance to the wellhead, there's certain restricted land use activities that cannot occur within certain zones attributed to the wellheads. So that's a sort of protection processes. You will see us at 26 roll out our septic inspections because we do have about 40 properties that are within wellhead protected areas where we have septic systems, and we do inspections of their septic system to ensure that they're properly operating. So provincially mandated, administered largely by the Conservation Authority of the region, and then we have components that feed in to that overall exercise. The other is broader groundwater resources. And largely this has been undertaken by the region following practices that have been published over decades by the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks. And in Waterloo region, we happen to represent one of the largest jurisdictions in all of Canada that is responsible to take water out of the ground to support urban uses. And there is an obligation as part of those operating licenses by the Ministry of the Environment to have a series of test wells that measure implications associated with drawdown on the aquifer, the health of the aquifer, and the recharge function of those aquifers, both to ensure long-term continuation and integrity of the groundwater resource, but also its importance as base flow contribution to area water courses and wetlands. That is where the issue locally has been. In part, the modeling has been questioned in terms of, is it truly measuring the integrity of the aquifer and its recharge? In some cases, infrastructure deficiencies have caused stress on portions of the aquifer system. So the region is now working with the province in terms of recalibrating the methodology and the modeling and gaining a better understanding of the strength of the aquifer, its ability to accommodate in the longer term additional development and the associated draw of water for that emerging urban development, both planned and proposed in the longer term. Locally, our responsibility is once again to establish official plan policies, growth and where growth would occur and on what bases the growth would occur in or around these areas, and the ability to support development in our case on the basis of groundwater resources through municipal wells. So one of the key aspects when we develop our new official plan will be where could additional growth occur, either on an individual lot basis and or through centralized systems where multiple residences or businesses secure water through municipal wells or private communal systems, and then develop those strategies that would govern where that would occur and on what basis they would occur. So once again, we have a complementary role. The region does have a water resources division. And they do provide annual reporting to the province. And we take that information and then apply it locally as we refine and revisit our land use policies or strategies going forward to the future.
So, yeah, it already exists. And no other questions about that? So do we want to pass those two or? Oh, we're not done Bill 68. Oh, if I could just, Bill 68, so,
Is it passed?
no, what's happened is all the letters, well, we went to the GRC, we must have had over 50 municipality letters. So we're a little bit behind if we wanted to do a letter supporting the GRCAs, but it's all been done and,
So Madam Mayor, if I could, Bill 68 has been approved.
yes.
It enables the minister to collapse the number of conservation authorities. Bill 68 itself didn't actually undertake the consolidation. It's just an enabling piece of legislation. The other key aspect of Bill 68, it gives the province the ability to charge, I guess the best way I could describe it, a fee, and the money would flow up to this new provincial conservation review board. And offset the cost to the province to administer this overarching entity. So that's the two key aspects under Bill 68. Province right now is taking in comments it's received, depositions that have come from third parties like the Conservation Authority, and is assessing the merits of whether or not to fully implement the enabling aspects of Bill 68. If yes, is 7 conservation authorities across Ontario appropriate? Is it some other combination? And if it's something different than what the province originally envisaged, which was 7, we locally generally would have had our conservation authority collapsed in with others to the west. And it'd been almost a 3-hour drive from one boundary to the other boundary. If the Lake Erie Regional Conservation Authority was ever to be ascertained. I guess the question that the province will have to wrestle with is, does it make more sense where there are today several conservation authorities along the Lake Erie watershed, whether it might be best served by 3 or 4 conservation authorities that are more representative of the geographic areas rather than one all-encompassing.
And there has been discussions on that. And Samantha, I ran into her at Roma where she met with the minister. I ran into her again today. Samantha is the CEO of the GRCA. And some changes are being implemented and coming down, so they are listening. Hopefully enough, but maybe not. Councilor Rowland.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So yeah, I attended Roma as well, and there were some sessions on the conservation authorities and also a lot of discussion amongst councillors. And some municipalities have to deal with 3 or 4 conservation authorities just in the one area.
Hamilton has 3.
Right, so they found it very frustrating. So there was some discussion about having the CAs follow more watersheds as opposed to just having individual conservation authorities having it follow watersheds. There's a lot of discussion, but overall, general consensus I felt from most of the people I talked to was that they want to see a lot less conservation authorities.
See, and again, we talked at GRCA, so we're a really well-run conservation authority. We're recognized by the province as being well. You won't believe the number of ministers that came up and said GRCA is really well run. There are some that are so small they can't hire the staff to do the technical work they need. So Samantha wrote a 4 or 5 page document for the province saying, let those smaller ones that are on the edges of our come in with us and let us help that. We will share our staff with them so that we can bring them up to our level. But 81 municipalities, that's what and there is talk about breaking that down. So things are moving in the right direction, recognizing that the ones that our budget's what, $28 million for GRCA, a lot of them are running on $1 million. How can you keep up with all that needs to be done with that amount of money? So they need help. And we've got a good background that we could assist them. And that's our proposal of the minister, and the minister's listening. So now do we want to pass those two motions?
We have the motion together to receive both of them.
Okay, is that okay? Councilwoman, you okay? Okay. So, she's just so. She has so much. Next. Yes. Why don't we just leave it as rooms and building?
Yeah, that's fine.
Councilor, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Willoughby, that the correspondence received from Rory Farnham with citizens for safe ground water regarding a call for green belt creation to protect regional groundwater be received. And the resolution received from the city of Guelph regarding the Grand River Conservation Authority and Bill 68 Plan to Protect Ontario Act be received.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Okay, amendment to the mobile food vendors bylaw number 3305-22 to include Air Community Center as a permitted operating location. Any questions from the public? Questions or comments from council? Makes a lot of sense, eh? It's just common sense. Can I have the motion, please, Councilor Tilly?
Certainly, move by myself, second by Council Roman, that CLK report number 02-2026 be received and that council enact bylaw number 3615-26 being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 3305-22 being a bylaw to license, regulate, and govern mobile food vendors in the Township of North Dumfries to include the Air Community Center ACC as a permitted operating location for food trucks and refreshment vehicles.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. The tender for the 3 half-ton pickup trucks. ND 2026A2 RFT. Any questions from the public? Councilors, any questions? Motion, please, Councilor Williams.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Tilly, that PW report number 01-2026 be received and that staff be authorized to purchase 3 half-ton crew cab pickup trucks from Finch Auto Group in the amount of $169,711.50 plus HST. And that an allowance of $15,000 be established for aftermarket fit ups for matters such as decaling, undercoating, GPS, etc. And then upon delivery of 2 half-ton crew cab pickup trucks, the replacement that represent replacement units for both leisure and community services and public works division. Let the existing trucks be deemed surplus and that staff be authorized to sell respective vehicles through a competitive process with the net proceeds being directed to the rolling stock reserve accounts for the 2 departments. And that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute any necessary documents associated with this transaction.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. And 13.2.3, report number PW 03-2026, ACC exterior renovation construction manager award, ND 2025-316 RFP. Any questions from the public? Councilors, any questions? Can I have a motion, please, Councilor Tilly?
Certainly. Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Roman, that PW report number 03-2026 be received and the council award the request for proposal ND 2025 D16 RFP ACC exterior major rehabilitation construction management project to Burcon Construction Incorporated in the amount of $87,500 plus HST, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign all agreements plus necessary for this work.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. There's no correspondence. Parking on Vincent Street in Hilltop Drive, Councilor Roman, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was in contact with I was contacted by some residents who live on Vincent Drive and also the Hilltop area with regards to the size of the windrows. The windrows are quite large, and as a result, if you park vehicles on both sides of the street in some parts of Vincent Drive or Hilltop, maybe some other streets, you cannot get a vehicle through the middle. So we're having problems getting either a snowplow or a fire truck or a school bus or a large pickup truck when vehicles are parked exactly opposite each other. For some reason, these guys that drive these great big giant Dodge Rams want to park right across from each other. So you can't get through. Some residents have asked me, is the township looking at perhaps saying, do parking on one side of Vincent Drive for, say, a limited time during the winter? That's option one. And we've discussed in the past, alternating, half the month, no park on this side, half the month, no park. I know all that stuff, right? More signs and all that. And then today, listening to the CBC, I heard an interview with Carolyn Parrish, the mayor of Mississauga, talking about the windrow clearing program. Now they added $24 million to their budget to deal with windrow clearing. But what they were doing there is because of the sidewalk clearing that we have, plus the snowplow clearing, which is the same in Mississauga, they ended with these massive windrows. So the result was they need to come in with a third service, which is to remove the windrows. And I was thinking, and I want to discuss it at budget as well. If we introduced or looked at some sort of windrow clearing program that could be in place, not just for the village of Ayr, we'll do sidewalk, but also for some of the settlement areas. I've driven through Branston and Clyde and Browns and all that, and they have windrows there as well.
Yeah.
If we had some sort of program in place where we could remove some of these windrows throughout all settlement areas, then perhaps we could get rid of the SAR. Because in Mississauga, there's no SAR. It's just, there's no special area reading. It's just part of the taxes. When you live in settlement, whether you live in where they do sidewalks, snow plowing, because everyone is getting the same type of service. It's sidewalks clearing, but matched with windrow clearing. Therefore, it's fair to everybody. So it's not a situation where only Ayr is benefiting. Everyone benefits. So it's something I wanted to look at budget time. But I also wanted to get input from staff as to, are we going to deal with the parking on both sides on Vincent Drive and Hilltop Drive? I know we've debated it for 10, 12 years, maybe longer. This winter proves, and if winters continue this way, is that we need to move forward and designate one side parking in that Hilltop neighborhood. Because the areas that we have one side parking up there, like Miracle and all that, there's been no issues. But the issues continue on Hilltop and Vincent where we have not put in place one side parking. And I know we don't want to do it because it's not the condition that people purchase their homes with, but continuing to ignore it as the windrows get larger and larger, it's not serving us. And I think we need to keep the bull by the horns here and we need to deal with the situation.
Yeah, I was waiting whether you're gonna, Andrew, go ahead. So hesitant on that. But
So Madam Mayor, through to Council Rowland.
Yeah.
The issue of curbside parking has been a longstanding issue and source of complaint on a series of roads, predominantly within urban Ayr, since I arrived. Some areas, we've had public consultation meetings with the neighborhood and certain changes were brought forward. I'm going to suggest on consensus rather than uniformity acceptance. But in other areas, it's been more of a challenge, more problematic. Vincent is one of those areas. I would suggest that the issue of curbside parking is an issue 12 months a year and is aggravated during the winter season with the presence of the windows. And why I say it's a problem year round is because with larger vehicles, people perhaps not parked tight to the curb. It can affect the ability to negotiate down certain roads, especially if vehicles are parked opposite each other in both directions. We have, as Councillor Rowland indicated, on all of our new subdivisions since 2015, where we lay out plans of subdivision, we also bring forward at that time an analysis that supports where parking would occur, and we pass bylaws to only have parking on one side of the road. It's easier in a greenfield development because people move into the neighborhood understanding where the restrictions are. And, they might purchase a home based on understanding those realities. A little bit more of a challenge in an established neighborhood, perhaps like a Hilltop or Vincent. But this area and this issue does exist elsewhere. We actually have older parts of the village where our travel portion of the road, paved surface, is 7 meters in width. Why we don't necessarily see as much of an issue with the curbside parking is because, generally speaking, their lots are a little bit larger or deeper, and they have the ability to park their cars on the private side. But the actual path of travel is actually narrower than our subdivision roads by about 1.5 meters. As those properties become developed or redeveloped, this issue will creep into those neighborhoods as well. It'll be more subtle, but the reality is the same potential end result. I am supportive across most of our residential streets to look at the one side parking. More than happy to, on a neighborhood level, meet with residents, talk about the options and what the implications are. But at the end of the day, you will not get 100% unanimity. And council will have to make a decision to pass a bylaw if you wish to restrict parking. And that could be one side. It could be splitting the road into, the first 15 days it's on one side of the road, on the other 15 days it's on the other side of the road. Look at permit parking. There's all sorts of different combinations and permutations. The ability to get unanimity is going to be a challenge.
Could you even do staggered?
Could. However, I caution on that because having an element of consistency does help with sight lines and the movement of people and vehicles along a street corridor. But, more than happy to make ourselves available. And I would suggest you have to do it almost at a neighborhood level of 2 or 3 streets in that specific neighborhood and focus your campaign. And then you'd move into the next area of 2 or 3 streets. But the reality is there's going to be a common theme, there's a common issue. And it really comes down to how willing people are to recognize there is a problem and they can be part of the solution.
Okay, so the motion, please, Councillor Rowland.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Tilly, that the verbal report from Councillor Roman regarding parking on Vincent Drive and Hilltop Drive in area be received. And that council directs staff to prepare a report that assesses options and implications associated with the potential to implement further parking restrictions on Vincent Drive and Hilltop Drive for council's consideration.
All those in favor? Carrie, thank you. Let's hope that you don't have chickens in the village. Okay, the next one is the dog park and the emails there for you see. They were saying dogs are doing their business all over the place, digging the pools, the gates aren't secured. They won't say it's shut. They just let them run, people are monitoring it. Any thoughts, suggestions, CEO McMeekin?
So, Madam Mayor, if I could, shortly after this email letter came in, we actually went through a bit of a thaw and a rain cycle, and so the amount of snow in the dog park receded substantially. I had no problems having the gates open and closed behind me.
Oh, so you think it's snow.
But today, if you were to go out there, you physically have to pull the gate open and you have to pull the gate back. There is a double spring on each of the gate structures. And it is meant to, when properly tested, to close behind you. There is no latch. There is a steel plate, and that steel plate with tension pulls back against the post. That does have to be monitored because at some point that spring will start to lose some of its strength and would have to be replaced. But when I did do it earlier in January, it did work.
Yeah.
So, as I said, if I was to do it tonight, not a chance. You're using the fence, the gate almost as a snowplow. And you would have to pull it open, pull it closed to make it work, and that's just the reality of the time of the year. In terms of people taking care of the area and cleaning up after their pets, there's a big sign as you walk into the entry, either into the smaller or the larger of the two cells. And one of the asks is that you do monitor your pet, but also to clean up after your pet.
Do we have a waste container there for to put the?
There was one earlier in the year. It is not there now.
Because?
Because of all the snow and the
Okay.
fact that people were not putting the lid back on, and so it was full of snow.
Okay, thank you.
And basically then melts with the heat and turned into water. So it was removed for the winter season.
Thank you.
In terms of the fencing, it is, other than the gates, it is snow fence. This is an interim dog park. Council hasn't decided as to where an ultimate dog park would go. We did relocate to the west side of a building here at the North Dumfries Community Complex because the other temporary relocation is the building site for the Net Zero Arena. We did move this back all in around Labor Day weekend, give or take a couple of weeks. But we haven't actually determined an ultimate location. I'm going from memory, either the 28 or 29 time period is when we have the build of the new dog park. And obviously a preferred location will have to be confirmed. It would then have permanent fencing, typically in the form of chain link fencing. And depending upon where we select the site, it might have a water service that would provide water to animals for the pet owners to make available to their dogs. That is somewhat site dependent in terms of availability of water or proximity to the ultimate location.
I've seen some beautiful ones where they have water features for the animals. They have benches for the owners and stuff, and just lovely settings. But anyways, thank you very much. Can I have a motion, please, Councillor Tilly?
Absolutely. Moved by myself, second by Councilor Williams, that the verbal report from Mayor Foxton regarding dog park concerns be received. And then staff review and evaluate the current fencing and logistics for the dog park and make adjustments as required.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. And Councillor Williams, the body law, please, first and second reading.
Moved by myself, and by Councillor Rowland, that the following bylaws be read a first and second time. Bylaw number 3615-26, being bylaw to amend bylaw number 330-22, being the bylaw to license, regulate, and govern mobile food vendors in the Township of Dumfries. Bylaw number 3616-26, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council meeting held on January 26, 2026.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. And third reading of the bylaw, please, Councillor Tilly.
Moved by myself, second by Councilor Williams, the bylaw numbers 36-15 and 3616-26 be read. Third and final time be signed and sealed by the Mayor Clerk.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. And the adjournment, please, Councillor Rowland.
Moved by myself, so by Councilor Williams, that the business for this company has been completed at 9:14 PM. It will be resolved that this meeting adjourned.
All those in favor? Thank you.